Awesome. Guys, this is great. Thank you so much. Thank you for opening the house. You guys were super hospitable. I didn't get the chance to meet you for breakfast. Why is that your favorite breakfast spot?
I don't know if it's a favorite.
It's your favorite breakfast spot here for sure.
Yeah, here because it's just newer, it's cleaner. The food there is just more well put together and just cleaner ingredients, you can tell.
Yeah.
And so
It's mostly because of the croissants. We go there usually on Monday. We have swapped date night for date breakfast for the last year and a half.
yeah.
Is that easier just to get away?
Yeah, it's easier. And so usually it's more like I'm getting French toast and you're crushing the croissant.
It's just nicer too because when we used to have date night, we'd always be so panicked.
So tired too.
I remember one of the moments that we had was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh
And
my
we
gosh,
went to
that
go-
movie was
we didn't
3
know how
hours
long
long.
that movie was going to be, and it
It's
was
a Tarantino movie.
It was 11:30, and we were panicked. I was getting anxious because we're not going to sleep tonight. We're not going to sleep because Knox just wakes up all the time, and but yeah, it just kind of you don't enjoy it as much, and
You're
so
so tired.
yeah, breakfast is way more enjoyable. It's quiet. You sip on some coffee. It's like a good nice routine. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I love it.
Mhm.
So I want to cut straight to it. You guys, where you're at now, let me ask you this. Because before Street Parking, you hustled at Flowmaster Seminar. That's a hustle. You're every weekend. You're social life, bye-bye, on the weekends, You're selling salsas and cupcakes and shit and hustling at barbershops and elementary schools and the acting thing you've got going on. What was the point? And was it that first month where 700 people signed up? You're like, holy fuck, we're legit fucking rich now. Things have changed. Because I don't know what your financial situation was prior to that, but there had to have been a moment where it's like, holy fuck, not only did we create something that's now enormous, we didn't plan to create something enormous. We probably did not have, probably didn't have that growth and 30-day mindset. But at that point, there's a couple things that hit your head, like, holy fuck, this is awesome. And then it's, holy shit, what do we do? Because you have 700 people on board in a month. How many employees were then in existence?
0. Yeah,
just you
the
two.
two of us.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just us.
So I picture that. I've got a business of 1 or 2, no other employees, and 700 customers show up. It's like, oh fuck, there's X amount of money now to play with. What's the first thing you guys do business-wise? What was the first move?
So actually, my financial situation was better when I worked for CrossFit because there was a period of time when I was with CrossFit that I had I was on a stipend and I was being paid every weekend. So they kind of paid some of us for a while to basically just, hey, we don't want you to have another job aside from this in case we want to randomly fly you out to HQ to help us with this or that or whatever. So it was like they were paying us not to go get another job, basically.
Not bad.
And so I had that, and I was working for CrossFit, and I was working for Progenics for when we met.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we were traveling all over the place and doing all sorts of stuff. And then when I left CrossFit, I lost both of those things at once. And I just had Progenics, which was still fine. And then he had his meal prep business when we started Street Parking too. And I don't know that we ever had honestly, our neighbor Brian, who is now our accountant, thank God he was in our life because he would come over and ask us those sort of questions so budgeting and blah, blah, blah. And we're just well, I don't know.
Yeah.
This is so unexpected. And he was still running the meal prep business and we were just taking it day by day. And like you said, we didn't plan on that growth ever in the history of Street Parking. It wasn't ever the goal at all. And so we became so busy that we almost didn't realize how busy we were and how fast it was growing because we were chasing a runaway train basically.
Yeah. So the month hits, the 700 people sign up. What's the first thing? Are you I got to shut down the meal prep?
No, not really, because my experience in my life was, inflows of work and then not much, right? So you don't have this feeling of assurance, okay. And I hadn't quite adjusted to the fact that we had established a subscription model, right? Because everything had been I would go sell cupcakes on the weekends and you weren't guaranteed income, right? Same thing with the meal prep because it was not a subscription model. It was more of clients ordered week-to-week basis. So it was pretty disastrous, to be honest. I lived very short-term, just enough to pay the bills. And the only peace of mind that I had was this massive check I got as a residual check from Red Dawn back in the day that at the time it was $23K in my savings account. And keep in mind, I wouldn't use that to pay any of my debt off because I was like, I don't know what's going to happen a year from now. So it was like my emergency because I didn't know, there was nothing promised. And so when we got, these members, we were still like, well, we got to keep these members. So it wasn't like, cool, we have 700 members, let's quit, we're done. Like I'm letting go of the meal prep. We kind of had a little bit more of a smarter approach. I remember telling her, because then, we found out we were pregnant, and then she was on maternity leave. I was like, look, and this was while all of this was happening.
This was like September, October, so like 10 months in.
Yes. And so then we were like, if we get 1,500 members, if we get to 1,500 members, I don't think you should return back to Progenics. And so we agreed on that. I was like, I'll still keep the meal prep just in case. We'll keep that going. And then I had made a mental goal. Okay, if we get to 2,000 members, then I'm letting go of the meal prep. We're going all in. So, because we were always the kind of individuals that always like to have separate sources, like multiple sources of income, not just one. So you have a backup plan. And I think that me and her naturally were those kinds of individuals. We had multiple plans. And so, but then you learn to acknowledge, okay, this is what it means to, we have something going here and we're really good at it. What if we just went for it and committed to it 100%? And that was a conversation we had. So we had those milestones, and once we hit those, we let go of those multiple sources of income and went all in at that point.
Who was employee one?
Well, we had some random help when we still lived in California.
Oh, yeah.
So he had a couple friends that would come and just help us ship apparel and shirts and stuff like that. And then that was two girls, Anna and Marie, would come and randomly help.
Yes.
With that kind of stuff. And then Frank, who was, I guess, officially employee number one, he was still kind of paid under the table for a while. And he actually moved here with us when we moved and just ended up going back to his girlfriend in California. But he would probably be considered the first official. And same thing, like he was mostly just shipping shirts and stuff like that we would sell.
Yeah.
And it was just the three of us. And he would help us film and stuff like that sometimes. But
yeah.
First official, like, hey, this person reached out, said, I'd like to work for you guys. I'd like to help you. Her name is Kim, and she still works for us.
Got it. So it was your first full-time W-2.
We didn't know her before.
Sure.
She wasn't like a friend. Yeah.
Was she a member?
She was a member, yeah.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was Molly, but she was always like an independent contractor.
I think she helped run a challenge, but it wasn't like hey, we're going to hire you on and this is going to be a forever thing.
Right.
We paid her to help us with so Molly from NorCal that was on my team, she helped us out before.
Have you guys,
as well.
Is anyone from that, like your previous life, do you now have them employed?
Oh, a lot.
Is that how fun of a part of the job is that? But also at the same time, that can create conflict as well. That could get hairy.
Yeah. So Molly works for us now. She's still a contractor because she lives in California, but she's paid basically full time, and she runs all of our challenges and all the nutrition stuff. Chris Guardardo, who was the graphic designer for Progenics, who created our logo actually in exchange for free meals from his meal prep company. He works for us full time. He lives here now with his wife, and they just had a baby. Benny, who was the photographer for Progenics, he works for us. He doesn't live here, but he comes here like twice a month to do photos and stuff. We've had a couple other people come in and out that were from our past as well. But
I have one of my friends that I went to high school with, also him and his wife, who also I went to high school with, work for us as well on the social media side of things. They were part of the community, and then we reached out to them and said, hey, you want to help out? And they actually have a pretty, it's a very important role for sure. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Have you had any of those moments where you hire the friend and then you got to do the boss employee, to employee relationship thing, and it
So for
that?
me, I had the conversation. You get to a point where you have to realize, and I think we realized this with Frank mostly because everything was so new, and he was like really close friend of mine. And then it got to the point where
he lived here.
Yeah, he lived here, and
here.
Yeah, like upstairs, right there.
Got it.
And then sometimes you have to learn to acknowledge when someone's not willing to grow with the company, and it's difficult conversation for sure, because we're not used to having those as individuals. Like we kind of, as we get older, a lot of times people tend to run away from them, and because you just don't like the conflict, you're like, nah. But in this situation with my friend, I know I've gotten to a point now, and this all came from, doing a lot of self-help and self-development and, therapy and all this stuff. You get to a point of growth where you realize you have to be able to disconnect that and be very transparent from the get-go. So I said, look, this is an opportunity and, kind of expectations. But then after that, you're going to be working with this person, though. And I think it's better that way, because then that person, it doesn't have such an emotional attachment to the friend like I do. And he communicates to a different person as their boss. But if something ever did step in and cross the line, then I would be the one to tell him, like, hey, like, you're dropping your performance a little bit. Come on, like, I do, don't let me down in this situation. Because if it does happen, like, things have to change. And I've gotten to a point of, letting people know what happens here stays here. You're still my friend, but as far as a work situation, like, I'm not willing to there's too many people that depend on, what's going on now, and especially our sanity. It's not worth it anymore to drag on an uncomfortable situation if it's like due to lack of performance or not living up to our expectations with how we want to run SP. You just have that conversation, as difficult as it may be, because it's not worth the ongoing stress and letting the other people now that it impacts down. So but we've only had a couple of those actually.
Yeah, I think with Frank, when it was just the three of us, we had a ton of fun. There was no structure, there was no schedule. We were filming things randomly, that we were doing things when we felt like doing them, and adding stuff in that sounded fun to us, and the three of us just kind of like, yeah. And then when we brought in Kim and we started bringing in other people, we had to start developing more schedules and structures. And that was hard for us. It's still hard for us to this day, because both of us are more just like, no, let's do it right now. Or like, I'll work on Saturday night and Sunday morning and I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
and it can't be that way now. And I think that was one of the things that was harder for Frank, was that it just wasn't the three of us.
Yeah.
Like hanging out anymore.
Sure.
Kind of.
There was structure. There had to be policies. There had to be, yeah. So typically in business, especially when the business gets more mature, one of the number one headaches is HR, just because human beings are dynamic, complicated personalities. If we looked at the different elements of SP, my guess is sales probably isn't the hardest thing, right? Like, it's probably like marketing and sales is probably not your headache. What's the headache now? Is it knowing what to do with this? Because there's not a lot of avatars for you guys to look at and be like, hey, that business did it, and let's kind of maybe follow that model. What's the biggest thing for you guys, like headache in the business currently? The thing that probably takes the most energy and resources?
You want me to start that one?
Yeah, there's a couple.
Yeah.
There's like internal stuff, and then there's stuff with the actual community and the members.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say internal stuff, like for us, is making sure that all of our staff, coaches, people that are creating content, everybody is very clear on who SP is, who it's for, and what our message is, so that we don't have to babysit every step of everything that's going out and being talked about and going out in a newsletter or put in a video or whatever, and not allowing anyone, including ourselves, to get distracted from who we are and what our message is. Because in every industry, but I would say especially in fitness, it's really easy to like, oh, this trend is cool, so we're going to go do this, or this other program does this, we should add this in, when it's not who we are. It's not what our message is, and just being very consistent in that. And that can go down to even, one issue that we've had with our content creators over and over again is that we're not super polished. We don't want to be super polished. Like, I read a lot of your stuff that it's like you should have a very specific aesthetic, and people should be able to recognize your brand right away. And Chris does a fantastic job of that. Like, our branding is beautiful because of everything that he does. But I would say part of our aesthetic is selfie videos and videos that our members clearly shot on their phone and they're shitty and the music's shitty. And that is SP's aesthetic. And if we lose that connection point. And one of the best ways that I've found that showed that we're doing a good job with that is when I post the like spoof things that I've been posting lately, where I'm like all fitness modeled up and I have a ton of makeup on and stuff. Immediately people know it's fake. Like, no question. Like, that's so not their thing that they immediately know it's fake. But we have to remind, because the more tools we have, the more money we have, the more people we hire with tons of education and experience and ability to make great things, the more they want to push the boundary of like making super epic stuff that can sometimes get away from the gritty aesthetic that we are.
Yeah, you guys get so much like CGC, like consumer generated content, the selfie video, the iPhone, the sweaty thing that you guys are able to repurpose for marketing. It's like you have 35,000 independent marketers for you. But videographers, and that's one of the reasons I stopped rolling with somebody, is because everyone thought this was going to be a fucking Martin Scorsese movie. I'm like, bro, we need to shoot this. It just needs raw. I don't care about the color grading. I don't care about the fucking lights.
Yes.
As long as it all comes through and the audio is there, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone consuming my thing is going to care either. We're not trying to win awards here. We're just trying to make it look as authentic as possible. Do you guys find like your brand voice? So if I were to do like an analysis of street parking, one of the elements of your brand voice that is so unique in the fitness industry is humor. Name one other funny fucking fitness company. There's not, like, you couldn't find someone that's actually inherently funny. Maybe
that's him.
Yeah. Oh, I know. And it's your acting background, I assume. And you, like, do you have The Office on in the background, like when you're just cleaning up the house and hanging out? Like,
you know what's so funny is I didn't even watch The Office until she introduced it to me.
For everyone just listening, I just want to, like, if you haven't seen the skits, these are very much Office replica type skits of the Street Parking HQ and the office setting in there, and they're amazingly hysterical, like hilariously funny.
Yeah, I think that I appreciate that. You know, is you just got to go with it, and it was like, how did it even start? I was like, you know what? I got to a point where I said I'm going to take over this, because we started off when we have a goal. So another one of our challenges is that there's still 5 years in, a lot of pressure on us as individuals. I would say me especially, to carry. I have 300,000 Instagram followers, and so if I just stop posting on Instagram, that's a big audience that we lose. So there's still a lot of pressure on me through 2 pregnancies and 5 years to like continue kind of pushing it. And so our goal for a long time has been to get our members more connected to the rest of our staff, so they don't always need everything to come from us. And that was part of why we wanted to do it, was to like show some behind the scenes and let people get to know the staff a little bit more.
Create some other names, some other celebrities amongst the brand.
Yeah, I knew there was something to it. So for me, I used to help teach, little kids acting classes in exchange for acting classes back in Studio City. And so I would sit and just watch, and it got to a point where you start picking up on those things as to like what is funny and like behavior of an individual, right? And then you get to you watch movies, and I wasn't like a big movie watcher, but I kind of knew what worked and what made me laugh, and I just kind of ran with that, because then I would meet individuals on certain movies that I would shoot, and it was their dry humor, randomness that always like stuck with me and really made me laugh. And I would see that other people would, you just throw them off and they laugh at it. That whole dry humor to me just works. I love that, right? Because you can go both ways with it, and you can speak your truth without people knowing if that's your truth.
Yeah.
And so I saw an opportunity. I was like, I think people, this is another way for the community to get to know us, and let's just go for it. And then they just evolved, and we would tell random stories,
but they're
that
all
actually
pretty
happened.
Much true.
Yeah, they're true stories. We just amplified the truth of it, and none of the office had any acting experience.
That's not true. Jeb and Carolina
Jeb and
do.
We had 2 of them. Yeah, and so it was very interesting, but then like sitting behind the camera and just like getting them to have normal conversations and getting their true personalities to come out, that's what made we got to that point. And then these episodes became really funny, and the more that they kind of saw themselves, they all kind of formed into their their own characters, and it just became great. The members loved it. It just created another avenue of like community building for street parking, because they got to see who is behind the scenes, not just me and her. And I think it's great, because it just goes to show that there's somebody behind the scenes that they'll be able to connect with. Not all members need to feel like they can connect with me and her. There's someone that's part of our team, because we have such a diverse team, that they'll be able to connect to, which forms a strong bond to the brand.
Yeah.
And I think it's great because I told her it's almost like when we do these meetups in the future, or we bump into members run into them. They're like little mini celebrities within the community now, and that's freaking awesome, because then it makes them care more, or you would hope. But I know our staff, they just care so much more. They feel seen, they feel heard. They're like,
and they feel special, because I do think like another thing that you see in the fitness industry so much is like the people that are like naming their programs after themselves and shit like that. Like they want to be the star. They want to be the only person highlighted. Like we would be so happy if nobody noticed that we weren't in a video for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's like our goal eventually. And so like they love that we're highlighting them, and we want them to be in the videos. We want to show them. We make them be in like, the demos with us and do the live workouts with us and everything, because it's like our aesthetic. It's real people doing fitness, not just two former athletes. And the stories are real, and our interactions with each other is really, a little bit exaggerated, but it's true from The Office. And
the analysis of that, like if anyone's familiar with The Office, even the British version where it came from, the thing that's so funny about it, the phenomenon, is shit talking on somebody else as if they're never going to hear it. That's the funniest part of the fucking show. And that's the best, is like when they're sitting there talking about you, or you're talking about like, I don't want to work out with the guy. And it's hysterical to the audience because we know he hears it and we hear it. But that's the essence of that entire thing, especially in a work environment. Go to a work environment where there's no cameras. Johnny and Sally at the water cooler are talking shit on, Patrice, like whatever it may be. And that's the hilarity of the whole thing. When I saw it, the analysis side of my brain was making characters outside of themselves so that they can slowly exit stage left at some point, and also adding humor in, because the one thing you guys are, if not anything, is completely approachable, completely inclusive and approachable, and nothing is more approachable than humor to a degree, like a Louis C.K. humor versus what you guys like. There's humor where there's a line of approachability, but what you guys do fitness wise is so approachable, and the content has just been. It's hard to find other people doing funny stuff. Like Kelly Starrett's been doing a little bit of it. I don't know if you saw, he had that mariachi band in the back of one of his videos. He brought in a mariachi band while he was exercising.
I think I saw his April Fool's where he was like a tequila that had like, I don't know, electrolytes in it or some shit like that. But
that is an emotion that fitness companies never tap into, and it's the most loved emotion. Everyone loves to laugh. It's difficult. It takes someone into business who understands script writing and can sit there and really formulate a story, because it's difficult to do that for the average like gym owner or fitness company.
I think that most people that get into fitness and are super hardcore into fitness as a profession, they kind of like go one of two ways with it. They either want to make sure everybody knows how smart they are, and so every time they're on camera or in front of a group, they need to like show off their vocabulary and all the different muscles and bones and tendons and all that shit that they know.
Yeah, the jargon.
And so it's like very serious. Or, a lot of fitness brands go super hardcore. We want to show how like badass we are, and that's not. I mean, it is funny.
Sure. Yeah.
But they're not trying to be funny.
Even the parody, like you getting all dolled up and all that. Like that is such a great parody of that entire thing. And there's so much more to make fun of in the fitness industry. That's just one of your like dark horse elements. Like besides the army of members you have in there, just capturing, you have the means to do it.
Yeah.
So walk me through your creative workflow process. Like when you're sitting down, you're like, I want to do an episode. Are you inspired by something you saw previously, or do you sit down with some of the other employees that you think are funny and creative?
The creative process is me and her sitting down at dinner, and the way it works is we figure out who's going to do the next vault workout that we're going to go live on, and then we'll just kind of say, okay, we'll take that individual and somebody else in the office and think about an experience that they've had together. Okay.
Like a real experience.
Yeah. And then from there, or the dynamic between the employees. And then we just kind of talk about it. Oh, like, why don't you do an episode that goes this way? Like, for example, with me and Kaylee, there was like the new girl.
It was about investing.
There was the one before that where I was trying to place stakes on workouts.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
And that is actually mine and her dynamic is she's competitive in here, and I see that, and I kind of fitness bully her into bets. And so we kind of ran with that story, and I was like, okay, cool. And then we talk about that with Salvi, who's the one who videos everything and edit it, so he sees my vision. And then we sit down with Kaylee. This is the route we're going to go. And then we just, I come up with certain scenarios, certain scenes that I think would be funny, and then we try it, and then we'll cut out the ones that work, and then the ones that do work, we stick with them, and we just repeat the process. So it was a very exhausting situation, because it was a very, like, we would shoot on Monday and Tuesday, or sometimes pick up scenes on Wednesday, and then have it edited Thursday and see a rough cut, really just edit it to a T, and then have it ready by Friday.
So for that 4-minute episode,
oh my gosh,
how many hours?
Oh my, don't even. I mean, I think this is another reason that people don't do this kind of stuff, because there's no like measurable ROI.
Sure.
And even for me and several other people in the office, I know for Salvi a lot of times, or when you're in an episode, you're like being pulled from your like actual job, and you're like, I gotta go make some freaking workouts, or I gotta go film these demos, or our actual product. Some of them definitely took longer than others. Oh my gosh.
But then it was so crazy how once you got the ball rolling on it, that they started off with the first one that was like 2.5 minutes, and you're like, wow, that was so long. And then the next one was 3.5 minutes.
7 minutes.
Well, no, the longest one was like almost 10 minutes. Yeah, it was like the
Almost
investment
a full
one.
episode.
Like
Yeah.
it was like
I
the
mean,
Robin Hood one.
That's that's a legit. The production value, and again, the means to have it and create it, but I don't even think the means and the money and the cameras and all that the most important. It's actually having that creative ability to do that.
Yeah.
And did you think that comes from the acting background?
I think so, for sure. And I always just appreciated comedy, right? And
Are you a stand-up comedy fan or like movie
no,
comedies?
I actually never even got into stand-up comedy until I went to some shows in LA, but I was never really into it. I really don't. I think my dad actually has a lot of sarcasm.
Yeah.
He's a very sarcastic individual, so maybe that was part of it, how he is the ultimate fitness bully back in the day when he had fitness in his life. And I think I naturally picked up on that.
Your mom's pretty sarcastic. She has dry humor too.
Yeah, she has dry humor as well.
Yeah. And my whole family's sarcastic. Like, and a lot of people on our staff are super funny.
Yeah.
Like really funny.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And so then you just kind of roll with it. And then it's very, again, talk about no structure. There was no structure. It was, let me see what we filmed. Okay, you know what, actually, because there were certain days where we shot a bunch of stuff on Monday and it didn't feel right. So then I would tell Salvi, I have a different plan for it. But it's going to make the episode go so much smoother in filming because I have a new vision that's more clear. And then so we would throw everything out that we shot and then restart it on Tuesday. And then we would, create the episode. We even pushed one where we shot everything on Wednesday with me and Salvi, the last one, and had it ready by Friday.
Love it.
But yeah.
Efficiency, and that'll happen. It'll get cleaner and more streamlined over time.
Yeah.
But it's just a sacrifice, right? Pulling some staff away, and some people might not see the ROI in it. But again, from the branding perspective, it is probably one of the more powerful things I've seen any company put out in the fitness industry are those little clips.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things too where once you get it, like her with programming and me with coming up with workouts and fitness, like for me, that came very natural as to kind of seeing how people would, deliver lines and knowing what that looks like. Some people try to do acting and you're like, okay, this person's like acting. And that's a skill to pick up, like being able to see when someone's delivering something like, that felt really forced.
Yep.
And
He's probably talking about me.
No. There was like certain people on the staff that like it's hard to tell somebody to just be themselves on camera, because once they hit the record, they're like,
yeah.
And then, but once everybody, I would do random things behind the camera and make random faces and make them laugh, and then just quickly hit them with real dialogue and make them talk to me. And that's when the real stuff came out. And that's what we got to see in the final products, and that was great, actually. But me and her talk about it all the time. We found what works for StreetParking because we took everything that we were naturally good at and then threw it into fitness, right? And that's what separates us from every other brand. We found what works for us as individuals, and we threw that into, what our business is.
Yeah, and I use you guys as an example. Tell me, there's ingredients and recipes. The ingredients are pull-ups and jumping and bikes and ergs and all that shit. None of that's new. Recipes are unique. But even your recipe is, you could probably, if I took a blank StreetParking workout, took the name off it, and some other dumbbell program workout and put them side by side, they probably look somewhat similar. Mm-hmm. It's the brand. The brand is 100% the differentiator. Like the value of the company, besides what you bring in monetarily wise, is the brand of this whole thing, because the pieces in and of themselves are not overly, it's not like it couldn't be replicated. It's not like it couldn't be copied, but the brand is going to be fucking impossible to copy if you want to. Where you're going to be so far behind, and you looked at as like a copycat, like a Samsung to Apple, that kind of thing.
And one of the things between me and Miranda as well, like, and this is an ongoing thing, especially running a business with your spouse, right? She is she's like a perfectionist. She pays very close attention to detail, which is great because I'm more I have more relaxed approach to things, but still care heavily. I guess I don't have the patience for those details that she does, so she kind of picks up. And then I also know when to pull back from, certain things that she's working on that it does matter so heavily, where I'm like, I think it's fine the way it is, but for her, no, it's not. Like, I want it to be, it's like, great. We both have a level of appreciation, though, with how companies like Disneyland, run their theme parks, which is a combination of like creating an experience and the attention to detail, and what makes it be a long-standing business, right? Because it's those things that keeps people coming back, and we use that a lot to what would Disney do in this situation, not really on their political side of things, but more of like on running a business side of things, because it's true. Like, it makes us always come back to take the boys, and then what our parents wanted to take us, and we're constantly going for the experience that it creates. And we just know that it's a reliable place, where it's going to be a beautiful experience. So it's cool. We always kind of try to replicate that with street parking.
When we first met, you guys gave the anchor keynote at the Iron and Mortar Summit here in Portland. It was 2019 or something like that, and it was very, admittedly, and you guys still are, we're not like, we weren't business savvy people when we started this thing. Maybe we don't consider ourselves more. Do you find yourself diving more into concepts like that, like studying Walt Disney? Would that have been something when Street Parking started you would have thought about this, or is this something you guys have, out of your own interest now, put your resources towards?
I would say that I put a lot of time and listen to a lot of books and podcasts and that kind of stuff, because I get super excited about the experience side of things, and how we can create a feeling through everything. When someone sees SP, when they see the logo, when they see a demo video, when they see one of the coaches talking, like a feeling that's created where it's like, these people know what they're talking about. They have my best interest, but they care about me, and it's casual. And it's really hard in the fitness industry to not come across as like super aggressive or using words that people don't understand, so it makes them feel dumb or whatever, or it's not as inviting. Where we can have people that want to go hard and throw up after the workout, those people are part of it. So yeah, I've read like a lot of the like Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and a lot of the like what was the Pixar one that we all read?
Sure, it was Creativity Inc.
Creativity Inc. Recently, I listened to a book called You're Invited, and I can't remember the name, but it was about this guy who's created like these really cool dinner party experiences where he's gotten to a place where like celebrities and all these people want to come to his dinner parties because he does such cool things, and how you can apply that to your own business environment, whether it's for your staff or for your customers or whatever. I just listened to something about magic moments or creating memorable moments by Chip and Dan Heath.
Yes, Power of Moments.
Power of Moments, that's right. I just finished that one. So not so much like business books and learning about like executive positions and things like that. I don't think that either one of us still get like super excited about that sort of stuff. Luckily, we still have Brian for that. But the creative side, both of us, in a different way, get into.
There was like books that, we both went back and forth on which books we were reading and stuff. I would say what helped us a lot was when we started reading books like The Culture Code as well was a really good one, in Creativity Inc. And I read this, The Ride of a Lifetime by Bob Iger. You start to see that those books really resonated with me heavily, because they're what they went through is no different than what we went through when they got, given these bigger positions and had more responsibility. A lot of the times they didn't know what they were doing. They just you have to embrace the new role and know that you're not going to be perfect and mistakes are going to happen, but you can't dwell on the mistakes. You got to just make sure that if something happens, you learn from it, and then you keep moving forward. And because each moment that is a mistake or is a learning lesson just makes you more resilient to the next thing that comes. And I think hearing that from some of these people that were, presidents, CEOs, and just owners of these massive companies like Zappos and, Apple's, just whoever they follow in these books, was just reassurance, as opposed to wondering if what you were feeling was right. When you listened to these books, you were like validated, like, wow, actually they were feeling the same exact thing that we've been feeling. Maybe we weren't so off. And then you just start becoming more confident in the internal feelings that you have towards making decisions and how to address certain situations when it comes to staff, and the community as well, right?
Pick one, experience or product. Which one's more important to you? The product of what you deliver or the experience surrounding it?
You can go one or the other. I'll go the other.
It was me in the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to think that I could say experience, but with that being said, I'm still so anal about the programming, which is our product, and like the delivery of that and making sure that people have all the tools that they need to be successful, that I don't know that I could pick one or the other, because that like you can have the best product, but if it's not delivered in a way that somebody's going to be excited about it, then it doesn't matter. They're never going to see it. But if you have like this, cool experience, but then the product, people are getting hurt or people are bored or whatever with the actual product, then, it's one of when you asked us before, like when you guys had 700 members sign up the first month, I think a little bit of humility went a long way, because I do see a lot of people who have tried to replicate, whether it's StreetParking or just some other online program, or they open a gym or whatever, and they have a big following or they have a big name, and they think, oh, like people should want to be here because this is my name and it's my thing, and I don't really have to put so much effort and time into it, and I don't need to talk to these people. Like, they're just going to feel cool because they're associated with me now. We've never felt that way. And it's like, no, the product has to be good, or they'll sign up because they knew who we were, and it's games athletes and exciting, but they're not going to stay.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I could pick one.
What about you, Julian?
So I'm going to go back to, you have to have both, because Six Flags is a great experience, but it's really trashy and dirty and not a fun, it's not, their product is, they'll have cool rides and stuff, but the overall experience is not what you want it to be.
I would say the rides are cooler in a lot of ways, but there's not the magic.
No, there's no magic, where Disneyland has the experience and the product, and that is why they are what they are.
So is your product then programming, because you have multiple different menu options, multiple different programs, or is the product the way in which it's delivered, whether it might be the good graphics on the side so they can read the word, like what is the actual product, since programming is also going to be subjectively downloaded. Like you could be like, this is the best workout I've ever ridden, right, and 30% of StreetParking members be like, we did something different. We did another track that you offer that day. Yeah.
I think most people join, like what they think they're buying is the workouts. So I look at that as the product, because they think when they join StreetParking, they're like, oh, I just signed up for a new program. They don't even necessarily say, oh, I joined a fitness community, right? That's what they get, and they get so much more support and funny videos and all of this stuff. Yeah, that is why they stay, but the product itself is why they come, usually, I would assume. Especially in the beginning, it was like, oh, let's see these workouts and see if they're fun and cool. And it's hard to separate the two things too, the product from the experience in a lot of ways, because it's like when you buy, a cool new toy for your kid, all of it, like, is the box the product or is the box the experience? Like, it's hard to separate the pieces in a way.
It is. And ultimately, when you get into it, part of the experience is the product and part of the product is the experience. So there's a great book, and because you don't like business books, I highly recommend it. It's called Talk Triggers by Jay Baer. He takes amazing companies and just takes these really cool anecdotal stories, and you guys having kids, you'll appreciate this. The Ritz-Carlton. So a family back in 2004 go to the Ritz-Carlton, they go to one of their Cancun locations, they spend a boatload, and they take their son and their daughter there, and then they leave. Well, they're on the plane, and you guys probably know this moment. The son has lost Joshie the giraffe.
Yeah, they talk about this in the Moments book too.
And so Joshie the giraffe, they call the Ritz, and the Ritz could have just put in a box, overnight UPS'd it, and that would have been it. But that would have been expected.
And many hotels would have just thrown it away and be like, no, sorry, 100%. We don't have it.
But the key with great experiences is not doing what would be expected, but then figuring out what would be unexpected. So for anyone who doesn't know the story of Joshy the giraffe, someone over at that Ritz took Joshy and they took him on a fucking Ritz tour. Like they put him down on like the massage table with the cucumbers on his eyes.
They had him at the bar.
They had him at the bar and they sent all these pictures with some kind of, gift card or something to the next Ritz stay. I mean, talk about, you'll never shut up from that. So you'll tell that story to everyone.
You'll never stay anywhere else if there's a Ritz-Carlton in that city.
Especially when it's tied to your kids. Because there's nothing as a parent that makes someone endearing to you is when they're sweet and kind to your kid.
Yes.
And when I hear that story, I'm like, that's what it's all about. It's the experience of the product experience. It's, semantics at that point. But at the end of the day, you guys are creating an experience. Like, do you guys ever get into... someone DMs you and then you actually are the one that responds back and they shit their pants like, oh my God, like I didn't expect Miranda to actually respond to this. I figured it'd be someone else.
Yeah, we're still super active on our Facebook group, and I have like I'm not the best at answering every single DM, so I don't want to say that I answer every single DM because there's going to be people that are like, that's bullshit. I DM'd her. She never wrote me back. But yeah, we still have that a lot. We still comment on a lot of members' posts and stuff that use hashtag StreetParking. We try to interact with them as much as possible. I mean, it's impossible for us to have an interaction with every single post on Facebook and every single post on Instagram, but we did at first. We were telling our staff. So going back to the most difficult thing, one of the most difficult things about what we do is this, what we're talking about right now. It's, I'm having the whole staff read that Moments book because I need them to hear stories like that one, the Ritz-Carlton one. A lot of people aren't naturally that way, especially when they think of work. They think of being efficient and like, oh yeah, like send them a postcard, whatever. But we always ask them, like, think deeper, answer the DM, like repost somebody in your story. That's going to make their day. Like, how can you strengthen this bond with the members? And everybody on our staff has a touch point with a member in some way, whether it's that they're creating the videos for people or they're answering the support emails, or they might be the person, answering DMs or whatever. Like, think deeper than just giving them the answer to the question or giving them a thumbs up emoji or something like that. Like, are there opportunities for you to do more? And what was the original question? I can't even remember where I was going with that.
I mean, I think we were just talking about the experience. I mean, one of the things I was asking you, like, you responding to people. That's one of the reasons I started doing audio. Yeah, the one reason I started doing audio messages. I found people, well, it's faster, more efficient for me. People think they love it 10 times more. They're like, oh my God, you took the time to do this. In the back of my head, I'm like, oh, it's way faster than texting, than messaging you on this.
Yeah.
But it get to, I mean, that's a level of interaction that would be reserved for a phone call, which is an intimate level of conversation. Mm-hmm. So like they hear it's the next closest thing, and it's a really cool moment.
Yeah, there was times too where, because we pay attention to what's going on in our community so much, and we have Caitlin, who's in charge of our shipping department, who a lot of the community really knows her, and she's so involved in the community as well. So if I find instances on Facebook, like, I'll have a member post a picture of their shaker bottle, and it's not even about the shaker bottle, it's that the one StreetParking shaker bottle that they had is so worn down that you can't even read it. So I'll take a screenshot of that picture, send it to Caitlin, be like, send her a new shaker bottle, let her know, thank you for using, it's time for a new one. So it's things like that. Or we have a law enforcement page as well, where I saw one, a law enforcement officer said they couldn't afford the new drop of the shirt, and maybe she'll wait till next time. So then I would screenshot that and be like, send this to her, say thank you for your service. And it's not even like signing it under our name, just the fact that, signed by StreetParking fam. Yep. So it's like those things, and then they'll always post about it.
Bringing back the humor. Caitlin's so great. So there's a story where this guy had put on the Facebook group that he had joined another program. I will not say which program it is, because I'm not trying to like throw anyone under the bus or anything like that. But I kind of I have to say it because of how she responded. So he had joined Matt Fraser's new program. He wanted to try it, and he came back and he just said, I realized I don't have time for this. Like, I don't have 90 minutes, 2 hours a day. So I'm back. I tried it. I couldn't do it. And she sent him just a postcard and I think a shirt or something like that. And all the postcard said was hashtag HWPO. And so she's like funny too, and she sees that stuff, and she doesn't have to ask us. It's, hey, you're welcome to do that kind of thing.
She has the autonomy to go.
Yeah, we're trying to encourage more of our staff to have that sort of mindset, to not just, answer the question and move on. What I was going to say, I remembered where I was going with that, is recently in one of our meetings, we reminded our staff that When it was just the two of us, back when we had 700 members and we were doing everything, I was pregnant and we would not go to sleep at night until every single hashtag street parking had been commented on and every single email in the support box had been answered. Like, so we were up like 2, 3 a.m., like pregnant. He still had his meal prep business, and we knew how important the experience customer service was and for people to feel taken care of. And we've continued to make sure that our staff are upholding that.
My fascination with you guys is beyond the business side, is also on the personal side. Obviously, the husband-wife combo thing is very interesting on the business front. But you guys just also have a very interesting story. You married and you were dating, I think, when you guys met, correct? Mm-hmm. Something like that. Yeah.
We were not officially divorced yet, but we were definitely like
separated.
I was moving.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was looking for somewhere to live in a completely different city. So.
And you were married how many years?
9.
9. I was married 5. Got divorced. Are you and Tyson still cool?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we don't really talk, but yeah.
Yeah. And me and my wife, we obviously had a kid. There's like a forever bond there. You're not going anywhere kind of scenario. For you guys, a little bit of an age difference, not really that much, but for the two of you guys with business and all that, what is the number one conflict that is, it's not even business, it's 100% the husband-wife dynamic causes you the conflict and butt heads at work?
Oh, at work?
Yeah. It's a husband-wife dynamic, but it's always work is where it's going to manifest because it's way easier than telling your husband and wife what, the thing that's bothering you maybe at home and it manifests at work.
I would say maybe it's the detail versus casual thing.
Yeah, for sure. Because a lot of the stuff, actually,
but it's not often.
No, because we do get into a lot of. Again, we've gotten a lot better at having uncomfortable conversations. Like I won't drop things. Like I'm not the one to run away from. If I see she is uncomfortable with something, or with our personal stuff, then we'll address it that night at the dinner table, and talk about it and talk it through, and that way it doesn't linger over to the next day. Because that we have done therapy together before, and then just in general from these books that I read as well, you just realize how much you could really avoid by having conversations as uncomfortable, and then you just get better at having uncomfortable conversations because you realize, this is part of it, and just talk it through and listen, and then one person always has to approach it, and know. It's difficult because especially when both of you guys have something building up inside of you, everybody always wants to feel heard, and you won't listen to somebody unless you felt heard. And so you have to go into it, and in knowing that, you have to go into it and with humility to then allow her to speak her mind, but actually listen, because that's one of the biggest difficult thing. That's one of the most difficult things to do is listen to somebody because it requires energy, and people don't realize that. And so once you listen and then, process things and then, communicate and then just let it go back and forth that way. And then that's how things don't really linger over into work. And if they do, it's just mostly of her caring way too much and me kind of trying to wrangle it back in because I don't think that's necessary. And then ultimately, once we've kind of figured what we want, and then we just, move forward.
Yeah. Miranda, why... You were married for 9. Why did you get divorced? Like, your life is so much different now than it was then. Games, young. When did you get married? How old?
Oh, how old was I? Let's see, 24, 25?
Okay, so that's
24.
Yeah, that's young.
I think 24.
Because you didn't have kids. I don't know if that was maybe on your trajectory. What changed? Like, talk to me about the change in you that that lots of life changes. Divorce, remarried, kids, all relatively quick.
Yeah. So Tyson's fantastic. He's one of the kindest human beings on planet Earth. I don't know if you've ever met him.
I haven't.
But he's great. We got married young. We're both from Utah, so that's kind of the thing to do. And got married really quickly. I think we had been dating for like 6 months when we got married.
Yeah.
Which is, again, very Utah.
I was like 12 months in barely. Yeah.
Very Utah thing to do. And we owned the gym together, too. So it was another situation where we were working together. It's just kind of been my thing, I guess. But I was so busy, like you mentioned before, like I was gone every single weekend for 8 years. He was on the seminar staff for a little while also, and sometimes we were together, but not often. And then he started working full-time for CrossFit. We moved to California, and he worked constantly. He was at work 12 hours a day at CrossFit, and I was gone every single weekend when he wasn't working. And we just got along awesome, like totally fine. But it was more of like a friend thing, I think, kind of like what you've talked about before. And, you know, we'd go to movies and hang out with Heber and Marsden and like the CrossFit crew and stuff like that. But it was just very much roommates, kind of like a friend situation. And honestly, I think maybe the car accident kind of like was like, what, like, is this is my life? And it's not, I had a great life. I was super happy with my career. I had a great person who would have never like hurt me or anything like that. But I think wanted a little bit more out of it. And so it was definitely me that pursued us separating and everything. And the reason that we never had kids is because both of us, actually, he would agree with this too, we just weren't sure that we were going to, like almost couldn't see it. And I think that was maybe a little bit of a sign as well that it just wasn't the right relationship for that. And then, yeah, I mean, I had decided I wasn't going to compete anymore, was trying to figure out where am I going to go next, super passionate about fitness still. And
then you meet this Pullman chicken.
I met him, and he's the opposite, other than also being very kind and awesome, of Tyson in many ways. And he's just this free spirit, this like, relax, you got to relax. And not you shouldn't work so hard, but like you should play more. Like also worked very hard and grinded a lot and stuff like that. But like, you gotta play more and go experience more things. And I had traveled the world at that point and experienced almost nothing because I was just so laser focused on competing in my career that I wasn't like taking the time to smell the roses. And he kind of brought that into my life, and definitely had more of a romantic situation pretty quickly with him than I had felt with Tyson. And so, yeah, I mean, before we got pregnant with Knox, because Knox wasn't planned, I already had the feeling that I could have a child with him, which was new. And so, yeah, he just brought a little bit more
when you know
flavor.
Yeah, literally, yeah, Latin flavor. I mean, and same for you. I'm gonna ask you the same exact question. I mean, I'm sure there were plenty of women. You're a great looking dude, and you've got the acting thing, you've got the charisma. Why didn't you ever settle? Like, why now? Why Miranda? Like that whole thing.
I think that. Sorry, I have a dry cough. I was just meeting the wrong people completely. I was also afraid to even connect in the relationships that I was in because I wasn't sure about what what my future plans, my future goals. So I was a very free-spirited kind of person. That's because I didn't have much long-term goals. I was very short-term kind of thinking, and I didn't feel challenged by the relationships that I was ever in. It was more of a superficial relationship, like, oh, this person's a beautiful match. Like, it was like more of like arm candy kind of thing, right? Because even now, when she's asked me certain questions, I didn't even know how to answer them about the relationship that I was in the longest, because it was very surface. Most of them were. And when I was 26 and then we met, we ended up going to like a dinner. And then finally, I felt so intrigued and curious about her life because she had done so much. And the people that I had dated were all very narrow-minded into the things they wanted to do. They were, either bartenders or they were stuck in their own ways, and they didn't really, they didn't have much drive in them. And she did. And I think that, to me, was what really caught my attention. And I just respected her so much. And I knew that if I wanted to establish something long-term, that I needed to kind of up my game and start having answers to some of the questions that were probably going to be brought up, right? Like, I had let my credit go to shit completely. I didn't care. I hadn't filed taxes for 3-4 years.
We hadn't been adulting much.
I hadn't been adulting much, and I was like, whatever, I don't care, screw the government, I'm fine.
I was going to date bartenders.
I was doing some like really hood rat things for sure, and I didn't care. But then, she had her shit together, and I knew that the stuff that I was doing just wasn't going to fly, and so I started making changes in the better for sure. And you start realizing, what comes from that, once you start doing things the right way.
Yeah. counseling. So I talked to Kelly a couple months ago on the interview with him and Juliet have just this weekly check-in. They'll get in the sauna together. It's just a check-in. It's how am I doing as a husband? How am I doing as a wife? Just lay it on the floor and talk about it. I was talking with Jason, what he's got with his wife. The counseling thing you guys mentioned, is that something you do still? Is it something like it's just periodic? What do you think about counseling? Did you enjoy it? What's your overall thoughts on couples counseling, even when there's not a crisis?
Yeah, go ahead.
We did it heavy for like a year. Basically from when I found out I was pregnant with Knox until we moved, right?
Yeah.
So a year and a half, I guess.
Mainly to clean up some communication, that kind of issues, or just because like, hey, preventative maintenance?
Well, there was just the communication issues. I had a lot of stuff that I had to get rid of from my past. I had a lot of baggage that was letting it interfere into our relationship, and I think that was starting to surface. And even for example, just having inappropriate conversations with certain females, where to me I was like, oh, this is just a friend, but subconsciously it was almost like there was always that. Like that, what if, like the backup, because I was so unstable with relationships on my end that I always felt like I needed to have
subconsciously to plan B.
100%. And I think, that really there was a very difficult conversations for sure, because when she would question me and just when I would actually say it out loud, because before I wouldn't care to answer the spouses that I was with, and I'd be like, nah, it's nothing. Like, can I see your phone? Absolutely not. Why didn't you see my phone? Or here, it's like, here you go. Like, so that stuff needed to be addressed.
Yeah.
And I realized that, oh man, when I would say things out loud, because I wasn't so used to saying things out loud, I realized that I had a lot of issues to work through for sure.
And the first time you were probably with a woman who could probably beat the shit, like do some serious damage. And
yeah,
she was pissed.
It's the first time I cared.
Yeah.
Really cared. I wouldn't really worry about that. It was just more of the caring. Like, oh man, like if I want a future here, I got to really make changes and address these things that aren't normal, and which when you live in LA or big city life, that stuff's kind of the norm. Oh, I have multiple girlfriends. It's like like to me now, I've been around the block plenty of times in like certain situations and certain styles of dating and things like that, where I and hung around bros, and I've seen a lot. It's really hard to bullshit me when it comes to any of that stuff at any point, because I was that Rico Suave player, played multiple personalities. I think I actually got more out of my acting through that than than anything. But it was very unhealthy, right? It really numbed, desensitized me as an individual from having an actual connection, because you always knew, like, how far is this really going to go? Because then, whether it be me being unfaithful or the other person being unfaithful, and it was not good at all. And because everybody, I feel like most people had short-term goals living in LA, the reality. And I knew if I ever wanted to be in a relationship and have a family, I cannot live here, because there's two, you have to then, talk about who is your circle. And my circle is not good.
Yeah.
And I had to bounce out of there. And most circles aren't good over there, and because it's like, what kind of values is that area known for, really, and to be in an area where like cheating and all this stuff is like kind of like, it happens. It's like, that's not good, you can't have that approach to it, really.
So moving to Washington, it wasn't just about no income tax. There's also getting out of the cesspool that is that lifestyle in California.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, first we moved to Orange County, which is much different than LA.
It was.
And it was fine there. It was just so expensive and crowded that we ended up here. So yeah.
What do you guys love most about up here? Only besides being at that one event, this is my only other time here. Do you guys do all the, I guess the benefit is the hiking and the skiing and all that stuff. Do you guys do that? Are you guys outdoorsy people by trade?
We will be one day when we're not working so much.
Yeah, we're definitely putting in our time now. For sure.
Yeah. And the boys are still so young that it would be hard to take them to do that stuff. Banner's just turned 1 and Knox is about to be 4. It's beautiful here. I'm sure you can see that, like the trees and everything. And there's just so much more space, and there is going to be a lot more opportunity for that kind of stuff. And the people here, like he was just talking about, they're simpler. People aren't trying to like show off and one up each other and all of this stuff. It's just a simpler way of living, which is what, there's no right or wrong, but it's what we prefer for our family and what we want for our boys to grow up around and see. So,
are you better parents or are you better business owners? Which one are you best at?
Depends on how you measure both of those things.
Yeah, that's,
Your own personal self-reflection, giving yourself a grade.
Oh, I mean, I feel like every mom thinks they're a terrible mom.
Yeah.
It's just like it comes with the job. And so I would say, like, you know, if I got a salary for one or the other, I could definitely get a higher paying gig as a business owner or a marketer or fitness person than I could a mom. But you know, one of the things that I've talked about a lot since becoming a mom is I never really. So I grew up in Utah where they're very traditional gender roles, at least back then when I was growing up. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I have 5 siblings. And I kind of struggled with that. I think one of the reasons why I became so driven and have worked so hard is because I've somehow developed a, like, this is wrong mentality, and I don't want that for myself. Like, I want more for myself. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I had kids so late in life. I mean, I was almost 35 when I had Knox, was that I was like, no, like, I'm going to be this, like, powerful, strong woman and blah, blah, blah. Since having Knox and now Banner, the pull to want to be with them and just say F it to, like, work and career and business and everything is so much stronger than I ever expected it to be. I'll be at Starbucks working or whatever, and I'll see a mom bring in her son or her kids, you know, and she's clearly a stay-at-home mom that's just taking her kids to Starbucks for an outing, and I get jealous. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, I should be with my kids. And I never expected myself to feel that way.
Yeah.
yeah, I feel
He's an amazing dad, by the way.
I feel like I'm a better parent because with parenting, I can love unconditionally. With business owner, it's not unconditional love.
Nope.
And so because of that, I would say that just being able to love unconditionally makes you, like, and knowing that I'm giving it my all, yeah, I'm a better parent for sure.
And there's no question, and we felt this a little bit with Banner. Like, I think there was a period of time right after Banner was born where 2020 was just being very 2020-ish, where literally no questions asked, we would shut it down. If it was impacting our family and taking away from our family or causing any sort of pain or hurt for this family unit, we would shut it down. No problem, no questions asked. I don't think that everybody that's a successful business owner can say that. I think it's actually probably hard for a lot of people, but I know for the two of us that's true.
Yeah, one of the things that, you know, as you listen to other business owners talk, even like the Kevin O'Learys of the world or the Mark Cubans, here's the truth, right? They are extremely successful, but that comes at a cost, because one of the things that I've heard them say in interviews is, what do you regret most? Like, do you have spending more time? I should have been able to spend more time with my kids. I don't have as strong as a connection as I wish I would have had. And it's like, there it is right there. The unspoken truths where, you know, that stuff when you have kids, it is one of the most painful feelings if you feel like you can't connect with your kids and have the strongest relationship with them, right?
Yeah.
The truth is, though, we're in this awkward pull, right? Because we do want to spend as much time as possible with our kids, but there's also a fine line of, okay, I've had enough. I need to actually, and then there's the pull to be business owners, right?
Yeah.
So we're in that stage where, you know, we can't go too heavy on one because that's not being true to who we are, and we can't go too heavy on the other because then that kind of pulls us in. So we're very fortunate to be in a position where we have my mom be the full-time nanny, because we know that as long as the boys are being cared with full love and unconditional love, that's all we can ask for. And we know that if at any point we're like, you know what, I miss our boys, we can stop. We drive over to my mom's house and we just spend a little bit of time, or go take, you know, Knox to go grab a little coffee and go grab a little cookie, or just a hug Banner and put him down for a nap and hold him. That is very fulfilling, you know, and we're very religious with how we stick to our morning schedule routine and how we put, you know, as soon as we get done with our evening workout at 5:15, 5:30, the boys roll up, and that is our time to get into a routine. And, you know, we cherish that so much. So,
And I think, too, there is something, one of the things that keeps me driving with the business is the value of them seeing that. Like, right now, they can't see it and process, like, what we're doing and how hard we're working and what we've built and all of that stuff. But I would say, especially maybe because I felt that way when I was younger, like, how powerful it will be for them to be able to see what mom and dad have built through how hard they've worked and how much they care about what we're doing. It's not just for dollars, right? Like we're actually trying to help people and save their lives and improve their lives and create these experiences and create a great work environment for the staff and chasing something, you know, that very entrepreneurial mindset. I do think of that when I'm like, no, I'm just going to quit and be a stay-at-home mom. I'm like, but they need that example too. Like that's so powerful to see, and it's part of being a good parent.
Yeah, that's why we often we're always talking about what our goals are as parents and through this business, because like we were talking about before we started this, you know, with the real estate side of things and what it takes to be a very successful real estate investor, and you know the processes and the amount of time it takes to get there, and then you have to ask yourself, well, what are the unspoken truths if you go do that, and what's the give and take? If you go too hard here, it's going to pull away from now your family and the time with your spouse that you could be spending, and is that worth it? You know, so a lot of the times, you know, when something like a new project seems extremely exciting or a new venture, there's always asking, you know, that question, always being able to ask myself, is it worth it? Because you know what you're going to lose right now, or, you know, what's going to be taken away, and that's not worth it. Yeah. Because then that's when things start kind of falling apart, you know, the structure.
Well, you start resenting it too, and so now you're like doing it, and you're like pissed that you're doing it.
Yeah. No, I get it. And it's like, who's walking who? Like, does the business control me? Do I control the business? It can be, you know, it's kind of like I always equated, you ever see someone walking a dog and the dog's pulling them. It's like, who's walking who? That kind of scenario. When you guys think, so my daughter, I call her Gus, right? That's her nickname. And she's got, she takes my iPad. She knows exactly what a YouTube button is. She knows exactly where Cocomelon is. She knows she can get right into it. And I have this constant discussion with Gus's mom about using the iPad too much and social and all that. You guys are growing. You guys have an entire, you know, just production studio essentially in here. How do you feel about social media in your kids' lives and that element as they age?
Yeah, so we're not anti-screen. We try to limit it also. I mean, we live in this beautiful place. We have a beautiful backyard. Like, go play outside. We try to keep them very active and doing stuff and building stuff and learning with their hands. But at the same time, like, you know, one of the things that we'll say is we live in a world with screens. So eventually they not only are they going to have access to them, but they need to know how to use them to be successful in life at this point. For most positions, most of whatever you're going to want to do, on some level, you're going to need to be able to operate technology, right? So, and actually on Knox's iPad, we've loaded some like cool like ABC mouse and games like that. We took YouTube off because I don't know if maybe Gus is older and so she doesn't end up on some random stuff.
I do the kids YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah. So take the regular YouTube off, but like there's a kids YouTube that's just
like,
the silly shit.
All of a sudden he'd be like watching like a dude playing with dolls and you're like an adult man.
Yeah.
And you're
something
just
random.
Like, how did you get here?
Yeah.
And so we took YouTube off. And so he just basically has these like educational games. But I mean, he learns a lot from them. He's like talking about the Golden Gate Bridge and like the Great Wall of China and like all this stuff because he sees it on his iPad. And so obviously you got to pay attention to, you know, things that might be slipped in there or whatever that you don't agree with. And then as far as social media goes, I would like our children, and we've never actually discussed this, but like it's a tool for us. Maybe we put a lot of our lives on there. I don't think we put a lot of personal stuff on there. It's mostly we use it as a tool for our business, and we use it as a tool to connect people and with people in a positive way, and to not see it as, you know, I've said plenty of times that if we didn't have street parking, I probably wouldn't really post on Instagram anymore. I don't feel like I get a big sense of ego from it. I've lost more followers than anything based on the content that I've posted. We're not seeking validation through it. It's a marketing tool. Yeah. It's like getting a billboard.
Yeah.
And so hopefully they'll be able to see that. And then that's another reason why it's so important for us to be authentic, for our photos to not be super photoshopped and things like that, to where like when they get a certain age and they see it, like that's not how my mom looks and maybe I should want to look different and all of that stuff. We're very careful about that. We've never really talked about that though.
Yeah. You know, now knowing again, when you understand how addictive technology can be, you know, even for us as adults, right? I mean, the impact that it has, I mean, these shows that they create, they know exactly what they're doing and how to make them addictive to kids. And so when you realize that, yeah, you kind of want to set a boundary, enjoy the shows a couple times, but also realizing how powerful it is for them to be outside in nature as well, and for them to get lost in the real world. So having that balance is very important. There's going to be days where, of course, you're going to stretch the limits with, it's a good thing that it comes in handy when you're just feeling total, like, sick or not feeling, and you're just struggling with the day. Like, I got sick last week and it was a struggle. But or when you're on an airplane, or when you can see now why kids definitely do it, because their attention span is just so short. It really is. And now you see it, because before you'd be, I'm never going to have my kids watch an iPad at a restaurant. Now, oh my gosh.
I mean, we still haven't gone the restaurant route.
We haven't gone the restaurant.
We're trying to avoid the restaurant route.
We're trying to avoid it because
get them to talk to each other. But.
Yeah, you just see how it's where he's at right now. We don't want him to get accustomed to just technology. So we're prolonging him going to restaurants for as long as we can to get to the point where he knows, hey, even, a couple years from now, he'll know.
It's tough. Gus, I'll take her to maybe like a brewery that has a big outdoor area that I can sit there with like a friend or the girlfriend, and we can hang out and she'll be outside or run around. But like going to an actual restaurant where I might fuck up that person's dinner and that person's dinner and that one, I'm like, have you guys flown with the kids yet?
Oh, yeah. So before, Banner's only flown once. We went on one short trip to see Molly when she was pregnant, and then back literally that same day. But we were going all over the place with Knox when he was little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that? Were there any horror stories, or all pretty good?
So luckily, we're in a financial situation where we got him his own seat, even when we didn't need to, and he would just be in between us and asleep on him or asleep on, but yeah, that's where the screen came out for the furthest time, because we took him to Hawaii, we took him to New York, we've taken him to Utah, we took him to Mexico. Like he's been all over the place.
Yeah. And the screen, I get it. The screens are like, for me, it's like break in a case of emergency. Yes. I'm like, no, I've got it in my bag. We're going out, whatever, bringing Francie. And I'm like, I'm not bringing it out. The second I sense that meltdown coming, I'm like, oh, fuck it. Where is it? Get it, get it out there. 100%. It's like Ghostbusters sliding the trap out, you know, to stop the meltdown. Where do you guys, with the kids and everything, this is a family business in multiple fronts. Mainly your customers are families. Do you ever visualize or romanticize this idea of them somehow having doing something with street parking?
I mean, if the idea sounds great for sure, but who knows? They might not be into it at all, And I think the best thing that we could do is just continue to do exactly what we do, and kind of one of those. Hopefully, it's like a monkey see, monkey do, and they just want to naturally do what their parents do, and so
the cool thing is it's not. There are so many different pieces to it that it's not like you have to want to be a coach or something like that to participate. Like, for sure, as soon as they're old enough to fold a T-shirt and put it in an envelope, they'll be shipping merch. They'll be mopping this gym, or there's so many different ways that they can help out without having to have some sort of knowledge or care for fitness. And then even we have these amazing content creators and these artists that work for us, that they could maybe be really interested in the filming or the creating logos and things like that. There's so many ways that they could be interested in it that don't have to be necessarily the way that we're involved in it.
Tell me about the street parking app. Is that still in the works? So you guys, because that is a huge undertaking. I'm sure you've probably talked to Jason about woes and all that. Where are you guys at with that? Because I know you don't want to probably be beholden to Wodify forever. Yeah.
So, we're almost 2 years into the development of it, actually. So they started the development of it, and basically what we need is a replacement for Wodify, but obviously a lot better, and where people can see the content the way that we want them to see it and experience it, right? And one of the things that we've realized is that the more simple you want it to be, the harder it is actually to make in a lot of ways. And so the first thing that we did, and the first thing that they worked on for a long time, was creating our own sign-up process, because we were still having people join street parking through Wodify, and Wodify was processing the payments, and Wodify had all the payment information, and that's just not a comfortable place to be.
No.
When it's they could just all of a sudden be like, nope, we're closing down, bye, figure it out. And so the first thing they did was created a new sign-up process for us that gathered all that information. Then we had to transfer all the people who were in Wodify still to this new payment processing, and now they're working on and getting close to the actual user side, where they're going to be able to see the workouts, log the workouts. And we've been approached by a ton of different other apps that are hey, you can put your program in ours, be on the whiteboard. couple other Sugar
Sugar
Wad.
Wad, yeah.
Yeah, and great apps, but there are certain elements of street parking that we don't want. I should say there are certain elements of their app that we don't want associated with street parking. For example, we're not leaderboard people.
Yeah.
And so all these apps, of course, that were created for CrossFit have these leaderboards, and it's built in and it's part of it. It's not something that you can turn off for your community or something like that. And so we want an experience that is unique to street parking, that feels the way that we want it to feel. And so we've been pretty determined to build it ourselves. But yeah, it takes so long, and we still don't really get to see anything because
Sure.
it's like all the structure is still being built.
People
at this
don't
point.
understand how expensive it is
Oh
to
my
get an app.
gosh.
How much money do you think you've put into the street parking app so far?
Over $1 million for sure.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
You guys doing it local? Are these local developers?
No. So again, a member reached out to us almost 2 years ago and said that he had something that he wanted to show us. It was an app that he had built. So he had been a gym owner in Southern California, and he had this idea to link all the gyms in the area together and to show all the different programs that they all offered so that people could pick which gym was right for them. Like, he had this like utopian mindset, and of course no one in that area was like
On board.
wanted anything to do with him. And so he had this thing that he had kind of built, and it was still very like rough.
Very MVP-ish, yeah.
Yeah, but he was like, he was a member, or maybe his wife was a member, and so he had reached out to us to say, like, let me show you what I have built so far, because I need somebody that is going to be able to afford me to continue to build the rest of this. And there's not many programs. I think he had brought it to Jason at one point too.
Okay.
And Jason, I think, was already working on his app. And so the app now is completely different than what he had originally shown us, but he's very talented and he's put together a team. Most of them live actually in Boise, Idaho. That's where he lives. So.
Okay. Well, at least it's domestic. It's easier to, than typical app companies are having to call over to India and do those kind of song and dance.
And he's a member, and their project manager over there is a member, and he requires his whole team to participate in street parking, because I can't imagine trying to explain what we're trying to make to somebody who's hasn't at least used it somewhat. Like, that would be really frustrating, I feel like. So he was a CrossFit coach. He owned a CrossFit gym. And so he gets what the workouts look like and stuff like that, at least, Yeah. Yeah.
So right now, you guys are someone asked me, like, think of all the people who've copied street parking. I said, yes, but there's also, when you're the first real proof of concept, that's what you signed up to be. Like, when you make it first, everyone's copying you because they have nothing else to go off of. There's no real beacon of light. You guys no one's ever going to accuse you of copying someone else because no one had done it like what you guys have done. So now anyone who comes up behind you is going to feel copycatish to some degree. And that's the one thing that's, whenever I talk to someone who's in that online, space, whether it's LCK or whoever it is, it's like nobody really knows what that industry average is for churn or how many sales you should be expecting, because that information's not out there. It's barely out there for the micro gym market. It really is. Like, if you're a club, if I'm working with a Gold's Gym or an LA Fitness, the data is everywhere. The micro gym market, it's slowly getting there, but for you guys, it's still infancy stage. What do you guys see, just for someone who's curious, like, in a given month, what does churn like? Like, how many members out of 35K or whatever it is would you say you lose per month? What percentage are churning out?
Yeah, so right now the last few months it's been a little bit higher because gyms have reopened.
Okay.
So the churn was very low during 2020 because we were like holding people
Where else
captive.
should you go? Yeah.
It's like, good luck.
Yeah.
No, and obviously the number of members that we gained in 2020 was not in this. I mean, we have always had growth, but that was like a huge growth period that was unexpected and not necessarily only due to what we were doing. It was a lucky for us,
Perfect
I guess.
storm.
Yeah, it's a perfect storm. So, I mean, right now, how many members do we have cancel each month? I would say out of the 35,000, maybe 700 a month.
Yeah.
And then we're still gaining more than that, though. So we've never had a month where we've dipped lower than where we were.
Always
the month
netted
before.
positive.
Yes. And one of our favorite stats is because we're about to have hit our 5-year anniversary. And I think, when Julian was mentioning when we get to 1,500 members, right at the end of 1 year, we were roughly 1,500 to 2,000, maybe 1,800 members or something like that. And we still have, I want to say, we had 1,500 members. We still have over 800 of those people are active members 5 years later, which to me, I don't know. Again, like there's no information, but that in the fitness industry in general seems really high for 5 years of consistent membership for that many people for that long.
What's the biggest trigger for sales for you? Like, what is a thing that happens either that you publish out to the ethers? Like, is there a thing where it's like, when we do this, we always see that uptick? Like, Emily Breeze, familiar? She was a games athlete. She was Charlotte, North Carolina, and she had her online thing. And I mean, Emily's, I think she's been pregnant every year for the past like 6 years or 5 years. I think she's pregnant again. And obviously that was always like that big uptick, like with her, seeing, someone would come in and film her with doing hang power cleans over the belly, and it would go on TV, viral. Mm-hmm. And I remember casually talking like, is that like the spike for you guys? Obviously, what is the spike for street parking? Like when you see something, is it just a couple every single day, 10 people a day, whatever it is, just happens. We don't really correlate it to something we're actually doing in our production value of what we're doing.
It's pretty consistent aside from like normal Januaries and that sort of thing. I would say it's pretty consistent. When we run a promotion, of course, like we're going to get a spike. Like we just recently did 6 months, and we took $15 off the regular 6-month rate, and we had a bunch of people sign up to like take advantage of that. But other than that, it's pretty
Did you see
static.
Increases when you were pregnant? Like,
well, I was pregnant when we started, so it's kind of hard
to. So I mean, that was it. But is that a lot of the avatar for you? A lot of people that read that joined, like, I see something, because you represent more than just a fit human. You represent the fit mom, and you went through the journey, and you had the vlogs and the birth here and all that. I mean, like, you intimately let people into it. Did that do anything, do you think, from a sales perspective, or do you think it just helped more with the branding like we were talking about earlier?
I think it set the trajectory in the beginning.
Okay.
I don't think that we would have had, I know we wouldn't have had the takeoff that we had I not been pregnant at the same time. Mm-hmm. I think it humanized me more, and where I was more of an entertainer before and like a CrossFit celebrity, oh yeah, she's cool, she does muscle ups and snatches. People were now like, oh, like she's in the same life stage that I'm in, and so I want to be a part of this. So I definitely think it set the trajectory. I don't know that we saw a big difference when I was pregnant with Banner.
No.
If anything, we try to be careful not to make that the avatar, because it's not only, I mean, he's over here doing these workouts, and he qualified for the CrossFit Games doing these workouts in 2017. And so we're actually really careful not to push just the pregnancy and the mom and the parents thing too hard, because that's not all that it's
But that moment, and we're talking, like, there was that moment, the CrossFit Games, where you forgoed your spot. You couldn't pay for better marketing on that. So one of my favorite marketing
He almost wore a different shirt.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Good thing you didn't. Anyone doesn't know, you essentially were, you punched your ticket to the games, you had your street parking shirt on, and you make the announcement that you're not going to miss the birth of your child.
Sure.
Everyone goes crazy, crying. It's amazing. Obviously does well for street parking. I equated that with my favorite moments in marketing. Do you remember when the Chilean miners got caught down underneath? Well, Oakley sent them all, because when you've been underground for that long, you come up and see the sun, it'll blind you. Oh. So Oakley had sent down packages and packages of they're brand new, like the thing they were releasing in a month, sunglasses. And so everyone in the world watched those guys emerge. Wow. And it was this moment in which, I mean, they literally just showed up and gave it to the EMS guys. It wasn't even like a plan. It was just, and whoever came up with that idea, it was just a great moment in marketing, guerrilla marketing, if you will. Where do you guys see, if the app comes out, like, you guys have been growing at this pace that's sustainable? Obviously, it's not, maybe not, I don't know if it's projectable. Where does it go? I mean, is it just, we just keep doing this really well?
This is a difficult one to answer, because we have this conversation often, because there's the route of you grow this community, 100x, 100,000 members, and then how far does it stretch before you start losing that close community? Because as it is, it's difficult to connect with the members the way we used to connect, and recognizing the faces and things like that, because it's so large now, right? We like the organic growth, and then because then it also makes the team grow larger, and then you're dealing with more people, and it sounds great, but then it's like, do we want that at such a rapid pace, or do we just keep doing what we're doing well and let it grow organically, and just see how far it takes it? So
I think the goal with the app isn't even growth necessarily in the way that most people think about growth. I think the goal of the app is to improve that churn rate, right? Where people have a better experience. We offer so much on our members only website in terms of programming, and we kind of are along the lines of like, hey, find what you like that we offer and do that. Like, there's not a way to mess this up. Like, if you like to do power workouts, do 2 of those a week, and then you can randomly do the regular workouts. There's not a track. We're not going to tell you exactly what to do. We're going to help you figure out what you like and then give you some guidance. And it's overwhelming for some people, and the website, the way that it is now, even though we've worked really hard on it, it can be overwhelming for some people. Wodify, is really slow, and it's really hard to use, and it's clunky, and it doesn't look like StreetParking, and it's not the experience, So the app more is to improve our experience for current members, which hopefully will improve the churn rate and hopefully
keep it consistent with.
Yeah, it's not so much for like, hey, we're gonna like blast that we have the best app in the world now or anything like that, because what does that really even mean? The best app is the one that delivers the program that you like, and maybe somebody else's app gives you like your exact percentages for your bench press and gives you a graph on your progress for your performance. And maybe if you're really into graphs and charts and things, our app's not going to have that, so it might not be the best for you, but it will improve the experience for our members. And so I don't think that we necessarily see it as a big growth tool. With that, though, like, we've been approached so many times of, you guys should market this way, and you guys should really push heavy advertising dollars in this or that. And one of the fears that we have around rapid growth and through like really hardcore like Facebook marketing or Instagram marketing where it's pushing membership is just attracting the wrong people. And that'll ruin the community
100%.
faster than anything. I know you talk about it a lot, about like kicking members out or firing members, and we've done that. Not so much lately, but if we had a bunch of people join at once that didn't get it, that were like, what's up with these office videos, and like, where's my percentages, and why am I not being able to load the leaderboard, or it ruins the dynamic of the community, and then we lose who we are. So I think we've been asked that so many times, and we want to grow, of course. And at this point, we want to grow more for our team than for anything. I mean, we love our home. We love our lifestyle. Like, we're not big, like, we're not trying to buy like helicopters and like yachts and things like that. Like, we're very simple people, but we want to provide a good future and a good income and a good life for our staff. And so growth is important for that, and just to continue to reach people and help them.
So there's a handful of exits for a business like yours. Acquisition being one of the more likely exits, because otherwise, like we said, like, this is just a machine that eventually just keeps going until you'll hit a ceiling at some point, and that'll be kind of your growth potential. If you guys ever you've had to have thrown around the idea that, what if Equinox called us on Monday and they want to purchase StreetParking? They're going to let us be CEOs. They're going to let us run our thing, but they want to purchase it. They want it under, like, essentially what Exponential Fitness does. That's the largest holder of boutique fitness companies in the country. They just buy brands, leave the brands as is, and that's their thing. They're just creating a portfolio of different fitness brands. Have you guys ever played around or even had someone come and want to acquire you?
We've never had anybody ask us about that, no. But, I mean, I think if you would have asked us that 2 years ago, we would have been like, absolutely no way. We're going to do this till we die.
Oh, yeah.
That's adorable. That's so cute.
But as like our kids get older and everything, if it was the right partner or somebody that like really cared about our staff, cared about our community, and wasn't just like, give me your 35,000 members and let me start doing some cheesy shit. I don't know that it would still be very difficult for us to ever say yes to something like that, but I wouldn't say now that it's like a complete like no way.
Yeah. I'm waiting, because there are, again, Exponential, I named one. There's plenty of brands that's what they do. They go ahead and they buy up multiple brands in the same genre, and then they oversee them, but they leave the founders generally intact, and you've done what you've done great. Just keep doing it. Kind of like Amazon buying Ring. Like, that's just that it's a company that works well in their ecosystem, and you guys do it great. We just want to have it. I believe it's going to happen because these online communities are growing. Nobody as large as you guys. Maybe if you look at like Beachbody or something like that, but like, That's got to be, that's in my head probably in the next like 5 to 7 years if I were to think of it on a business timeline, if somebody's going to come along and just start like wanting to put together a nice portfolio of the best online programs of all different corners and genres. Have you guys networked, or have you guys created colleagues out of anyone else in this space that's doing it, smaller than your scale or larger than your scale? Have you had, are there friendlies out there that have reached out and be like, hey, I own such and such thing. We've got 22,000 whatever people. I've been seeing what you're doing. Kudos. It's awesome. Let's grab coffee sometime and talk shop.
You?
Me? Okay.
No, I
Fair
mean,
enough.
I still talk to Jason. I'm
Sure.
still good friends with Pat Sherwood. Yeah, I mean, we'll randomly get other people that have online. It's mostly still CrossFit, and that's what I was going to ask you actually, because I think because of our aesthetic and our way that we present ourselves is very real and authentic and not glamorous fitness and not shiny fitness. I even though we are as successful as we are, I still feel, not in the CrossFit space, I know that people at CrossFit HQ definitely respect what we've done and they see it. And, I still talk to Dave and he jokes around all the time. He's like, that sounds like a rich people thing, or whatever. And I'm just like, whatever. So I know that there's a lot of respect in the CrossFit community, but I don't know that anyone outside in the general fitness world even sees us, actually. And maybe I'm completely wrong about that, but I do still feel like we're very much an underdog, or very much like a speakeasy type situation.
Well, because there's not a physical, like, big businesses get recognized because they have big brick and mortars, like gold, like these things. Like, it's impossible for you to really, because no one's in your private membership group kind of scenario. It's hard to go off of how big it actually is. I mean, besides a following on social media account type scenario, and you guys aren't braggarts about it to any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and we're not heavy marketing, so you're not going to see a lot of ads and things like that. And when you go to our website, it's still just like regular people looking like they're working out. It's not. And there are so many things that we could do now that we could have been doing along the way to profit way more. Like, we could be selling supplements and selling equipment and selling. But I do think there's a lifespan to that where people now, I think most fitness brands are, okay, I'm going to join this program, then they're going to try to sell me this shit, then they're going to try to upsell me the next program. And because that's not who we are, it creates that loyalty. But again, I think that we're seen as, actually, I don't think that we're seen at all outside of the CrossFit community still by bigger brands.
And not having the market. So that book I was talking about, Talk Triggers by Jay Barry, there's a quote in there, I don't know if it's his or someone else's, says, marketing is a tax that only has to be paid by unremarkable brands. Remarkable brands do not have to pay the tax that is marketing. Because their shit's really, really good, and maybe they produce a level of organic content that people just go to naturally, and that's that's one of the, if this company has a couple of superpowers, one of it is not having to pay for marketing. Like, the amount of money you'd have to, like, if you were to just sit down with an MBA and we were to do a pro forma over 5 years to get 35,000 paid members, like, the amount of marketing money that you would be allocating that in client acquisition costs and social media, it'd be fucking insane. There's no way. Whatever this margin of your company is would be just cut in half because of that. That's such a powerful thing. Again, if, like, I'm a company looking to acquire someone, I'm like, who's someone who's done something that generally would have probably cost $4 million in marketing over 5 years? And it's incredible. I also wanted to, one of my, let's go here. You mentioned still have a good relationship with Dave and the CrossFit, and everyone having a lot of respect for what you're doing there. How did everything sit with you when that went down in 2020, the CrossFit PR shitstorm of the summer?
Yeah, so it's so funny. I posted just yesterday that I still am a level 4 CrossFit coach. I actually went and
I saw that post.
I retook the test for really no reason. Like, people are like, why?
It's pride. You should be proud of that.
Because I was still eligible for it, and because I do believe in the training department and the methodology so much. When Greg started saying some of the things that he was saying in 20, and I'm not laughing because it was funny. It just didn't surprise me because Greg is Greg, and I've known Greg personally, and I never had any sort of like weird interaction with him, like some of the stuff that came out or anything like that. But like, to me, and this is not at all like excusing people that were hurt by what he said or anything like that, but he's he's one of those people that is such a genius that you expect him to be odd. Like he's just an odd person, and he's never had a good filter. He's always said some crazy shit, like
Very Elon Musk-esque.
yes. And so, yeah, I mean, we didn't have too much stock in it. We didn't really think of it that much, but I would have to say that I wasn't super surprised by it. I was surprised that he sold, honestly. And maybe, again, like it goes to show that he cares about CrossFit more than he cares about himself, which I believe to be true. And I'm glad that Dave and Nicole are still there. And it seems like they're turning things into a better direction now, which is awesome.
Was there any real substance, or was that just all smoke, the Me Too stuff? Do you think there was really something to that?
I think that any CEO of any super successful company, not any, but I think that it's not just CrossFit is what I should say. I think that there are creepy old men with too much money at the top of many, many
Systematic
organizations.
patriarchal kind of problem.
Yes. I never experienced it. Like I said, yeah, he said like, old man stuff. And he's not that old, I guess, but yeah, like he'd call you sweetie or something like that, but nothing that ever made me feel super uncomfortable. I wouldn't say that I would put money on the fact that it's not true, but I also don't have any personal experience to say that it is.
Yeah. With what happened with CrossFit, and obviously, CrossFit, the de-affiliations, 2020, the loss of the gyms and all that kind of stuff. And obviously you meant, obviously 2020 it was growth for you guys. You guys were already growing. It was just on steroids, essentially.
Yeah.
Right place, right time. Do you ever step foot into a gym? Like, do you ever just go to see what that's like? Because that's where a lot of your customers are coming from. And obviously, if you're going to make an experience for someone because they missed the mark, timing wise, schedule, their kids and this, and you guys, or they just didn't like the culture at the gym. Do you guys still keep a pulse on what is probably your biggest competitor, which is not other fitness programs online, because you have a brand that differentiates you. Mm-hmm. You can't get this anywhere else. Mm-hmm. But your biggest competitor is probably the idea of wanting to be around other people. That's probably the most inherent, human Maslow's hierarchy, desire of wanting to be around it. That's probably your biggest competitor. Do you guys ever keep a pulse and just get an idea of what is it like to go to a gym now? I haven't had a gym membership in years. I don't know what that's like.
Oh man.
When was the last time you worked out at a gym? In California? We haven't done it here. No, we did the open workouts here when we first moved here.
Where did we go?
It was in Portland with Paulo. Remember?
We did.
Yeah,
we did.
But it wasn't in a class. I don't think. I think we were just in there by ourselves with our crew.
It was, yeah. Wow, yeah. It's been a while.
It's been a hot minute.
Like 3 years.
Yeah.
Over 3 years.
Do you ever think about that from obviously you stay focused on your thing, you put on your blinders, you just do what we do. It doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. But do you ever think about that? Like, if I'm a StreetParking member and I leave, it might just be because I lost motivation to, no matter how good the videos
100%.
are. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that, when people cancel, we ask them why, and not everybody answers. But that is one of the higher, I'm going to go back to my gym. I miss my friends or whatever. I was using this while I was postpartum, but now I can go back, or while the gyms were closed, or while I was deployed, or whatever. And it was only ever meant to be a temporary thing, and they want to go back and be with their people, which I totally understand, by the way. We work out in a group here in this garage, and on the days that we work out alone, it's sometimes I enjoy it, but sometimes it's harder to get moving and get going. I guess the only reason that it makes sense what you're saying, but at the same time, every gym is so different. Like, if I go to an urban movement gym, the experience, I'm sure, is going to be beautiful and great and awesome. But if I go to a crappy CrossFit gym where I'm going to be not all CrossFit gyms are crappy. Okay, this isn't the Joe Rogan podcast.
Just a crappy CrossFit gym.
Yeah, or any crappy gym, then I'm going to be like, oh yeah, our experience is way better, and come out overconfident. Why would anybody want to come here instead of work out at home? So, I mean, I would feel so awkward at a gym at this point. Maybe now, are we socially awkward now? Are we fitness socially awkward?
I don't think so. It's not that I would mind going to one, but I also value my time very heavily. So it's, I know how productive it is to just work out at home. And this is why we started StreetParking, is because of that reason alone. And so, I personally would just find it as a waste of my time, and not because it's, these gyms aren't awesome or anything, but just because there's so many other things I got to do throughout the day. So
yeah, you think about how much time you still wish you had, and you literally can come out here. There's no travel time. There's not 20 minutes one way in traffic, that kind of scenario. I work out at home, and it's amazing. Like that's, I think about how much extra time I have, and it's still I don't have enough time type scenario. But the busier you are, the more successful you are, the more you put value on stuff like that. That's why the wealthy will have a personal trainer or have a coach build out this and have a trainer come to them in their garage 100%. And that kind of thing, because time and the opportunity cost is so high for them at that point.
Yes.
With your members, though, the average person paying, especially the price point they're paying, these are people, I'm sure there's ultra wealthy maybe that are on street parking, but most of these are people like, I don't have the means to afford a $200 a month gym membership. I can have maybe $75 of gym equipment at home. So for them, that value of convenience and time probably doesn't play on their side because they don't have the opportunity cost loss that somebody else would. So for them, it's ultimately the community and how well they feel like they're heard. How many people does it take to make people with 35,000 plus people in a Facebook group feel heard? How many humans does it take to make that amount of people feel heard?
Like how many people do we have just manning our Facebook group?
Well, having to answer customer, like what is from all the customers and their outputs to you, emails, DMs, post on the private page, how many people does it take to manage that group of customers?
So we have about 50 staff. Not all of them are interacting personally with customers or members, I should say. But I would say probably 40 of them are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Except for the people filming and editing the videos and taking photos. Pretty much everybody else is
customer facing communication.
Yeah, we just let them know how important it is. It's kind of part of the gig, right? Like, hey, we value this a lot in the engagement because you are not just an employee. Like, you are representing this brand, and you commenting on somebody's post has a lot of value, and especially so just keep that going. So we encourage them heavily to do that, even if they're video editing or they're not on the front lines of things. So
yeah, I mean, like even I had the opportunity to have an in-person gym. And many of the things that we do in street parking, I'm trying to mimic what I felt was important in the in-person gym. And sure, it's nice to hear the owner of the gym or the head coach might come over to you and be like, awesome job on the workout today. But if the front desk girl comes over and tells you good job, just anybody telling you good job or that was awesome or I don't know, I like your top or whatever from any of the staff. You'd be like, oh my gosh, like they're so nice there. I love them. It doesn't have to be the gym owner. It doesn't have to be the head coach.
Yeah. I tell Jim, I give them my thing when I work with coaches. I'm like, stop going around and using that filler word of good job, good job. I swear to God, next time you walk around, be like, I love your shoes. Where'd you get that?
Yes.
I promise you'll make someone's day so much fucking better.
Or make some little like joke, like, how about that song that played during that workout? What was that all about?
Yeah, exactly.
And even some guy might just be like, you never know. Like this usually introverted person you might have a new relationship with that person now. So.
One of my good friends from college, it's so funny, she popped into that clubhouse that me and Jason did a test run on. Her name's Emily Euclid. She's a street parking client, and she texts me, and she's like, I saw you're doing the clubhouse thing with Miranda or whatever. I've been doing that. And Emily, to me, is my, like, college drinking buddy, like, just, like, degenerates, that kind of stage and all that. And I started really thinking about it. I'm like, how much of that individual, had fun in college, grew up, got married, had kids, and now it's, this is it. This is, I don't want to be that far away from the kids. I don't want to have to get the babysitter or call mom over, that kind of scenario. And it just it got me thinking, because my vision of Emily in college and her being a mom, I can't even fathom the two things, What was Miranda Chivers like in high school and college? And then what was Julian like? Because obviously you already said hood rat shit. You were probably living a little bit more of a wild LA life. But I'm curious, Miranda, for you, what was Miranda Chivers like in the younger days?
So I have 3 older brothers who got in a lot of trouble. And so I was
what kind of trouble?
Like drugs.
Okay.
I mean, they didn't do well in school. They were getting in trouble with not over the top, but like weed and stuff like that.
They're straight now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they all are doing better now.
Good.
But they were always in trouble, and I was bound and determined to be the opposite of that. Like I said, from a pretty young age, I was going to be successful, and I was driven, and I was straight A's, and I was student council, and I was on the cheerleading squad, and I was all that stuff. So I didn't really get in trouble or anything like that in high school. I drank after high school when I was in college, but never to the point where I wasn't in class on time, had a job through college, sometimes 2 jobs. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Man, so I think what happened with me was there was really good family structure when I was younger. And then my parents went through a divorce as soon as I left to LA, which was 17. I was 17 and a half, actually, to finish out school and start acting career. And they were going through a divorce. And that rocked me for sure. And I felt like that's where things kind of spiraled out of control as far as, like, I didn't know who to guide me because they were so focused on what was going on in the relationship. And then my dad would call me and all he would talk to me about was like how hurt he was and all this venting. And then I got annoyed of talking to him because that's not what I wanted to talk to. Like I had my own issues that I was having questions about. And it just, so then once I got into a level of independence, which wasn't the greatest, I just felt like I didn't want to listen to anybody. I was good. I mean, I was actually proud of myself for not getting involved in, too heavy drinking, especially at that age, 18, 19, living in LA on my own with my brother. But I mean, he wasn't really watching out for me either, right? But when I chose to have this independence, I took a lot of responsibility. And I think that's what kept me grounded. And I learned a lot from my dad as I was growing up as to, what working hard was all about, and my mom as well. So that helped. But I was pretty reckless, to be honest. And a lot of it just came with mostly my dating life and not really caring about, future long-term goals. Like the things I would have done differently, of course, as far as like financial education, right? And how to create opportunities for yourself. But hey, I was telling her, I think we were talking about it last night. People don't realize the impact of staying true to something and being consistent with something for a long duration of time. I think everything people try, they just let it go so quickly. But I think CrossFit, I was 22, was something that I was the most consistent with for so long. And look at the outcome that came from just staying so heavily involved in it, which was we got to meet each other, and then StreetParking came from that. And that journey of, training with my training partners at the time, just finally having somebody that kind of kept me accountable. That journey, I think, was the best route I could have taken, no matter how destructive I may have been or whatever. But everything led me to being here. So
I've got this thesis. My parents got divorced. I'm just like one of the just nasty divorce. Like cops always being called to my sporting events. I was young. They got divorced early, probably when I was like 6.
Okay.
And then it was like the shared parenting. I'd go to my dad's every Wednesday and every other weekend. And he had a huge alcohol and coke addiction issue. It was a huge thing. But like from a divorce perspective, I always had this thesis. If you come from a divorce, because when your parents get divorced, even if it's pretty amicable, you still see a very bad side of mom and a very bad side of dad. Like that comes out. But for me, even with my divorce, that was the thing with me and my wife, or ex-wife, is just like, this is going to be the best. She's not even going to understand like that divorce is bad. She's not even like, she has no idea. Me and my girlfriend were driving over to my ex-wife's house for my kid's birthday party, her 4-year-old birthday party. And we all hang out and do the holidays together. And she'll be like, Jess, my girlfriend, she's like, do you want to go see mommy's bedroom? And which is an awkward as hell thing, but she has no idea that it's weird. It's exactly what I want. I want her just to think she has this really big, weird family and she spends time at she has 2 different houses. She has 2 Christmases. Do you think that your parents being divorced and you seeing that dynamic and going through that positively impacts you as a father? Do you think of it like that?
Yeah, communication, because one thing, I think things would have been okay if they were able to just communicate with me what was going on, as opposed to trying to get me to get involved. I was like, no, I don't know. Like, I need you guys, that, especially in this transition to becoming an adult, and something that I was so foreign to me, like moving from Tillamook, which was a town of 4,000 people, to LA. Like, what the heck, to become an actor, right? I felt like I needed them, and they just weren't quite there for me. And I just got really angry at that. And my mom wasn't a very good communicator either. I mean, I can't blame her. She had us very young. I think she was like 18 when she had me and 16 when she had my brother. So, I feel like now she's finally being her youthful self, because the communication was just horrible. It wasn't your traditional, mother who has deep conversations with you, things like that. She did great. She loved us. My dad, all I remember is a lot of quality time and lots of love, but as far as the things that are, ground you, which is the communication stuff, that was missing. And then when I needed it the most, I never had it. And it was really rough for sure.
What got you into acting? How young were you?
I think it just gave me a goal to do something because I had no idea what I wanted to do as far as like when I graduated high school.
Was there like an actor you saw? You're like,
it was like more of my brother and my mom, found like this Barbizon thing kiosk. Have you heard of Barbizon?
No.
It's like one of those kiosks that like these people, pick out children like, hey, like your kid has the look to be an actor. Like come do this, course, 6-week course, pay this much, and they'll meet agents and all this stuff. And they got all excited, so they had me, they signed me up for this 6-week course.
They thought you were going to be the Gerber baby.
Oh, yeah. And it was such a joke. But, I mean, was it, though?
Yeah.
Because exactly, right?
Yeah.
There's always those unicorns.
Yep.
And I just so happened to be the unicorn that actually, had a level of success through it. But it just gave me it gave me an identity that I needed because I didn't know what else I wanted to do. Yeah. I didn't, college, senior year was coming around the corner, and I didn't know, like, there were people talking about colleges, and I did not want to go to college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And, so then acting was like, that's it. Like, that's what I'm going to go do.
Yeah.
And then I just, actually tried when I first moved out there. And, again, the level of, opportunities that come your way when you try, it's just a matter of what you do with them, because then there's opportunities come your way, but then what do you do with those opportunities,
You had, Haywire, Red Dawn. There was success along there.
Yeah, there was. So there was I did a movie for the Hallmark Channel, and then and then came Red Dawn, and then Haywire, and then Suits.
TV's, Suits.
So big networks.
Yeah.
I've done certain projects, and but
why didn't it, what was looking back on it now, because that's the past life, I'm assuming you're probably not, if you got a call up now to go do a table read or something,
sure.
I don't know whether you take it or not, but what was it you were missing, or was it just you fell out of love with it because you realized the life and the cult, what you had to do to
so I just didn't connect with individuals in there as I did with the individuals through fitness. Yes. I always loved working out. I always loved sports and athletics. So with acting, that is not the people there. Like they are soft for sure. And the dudes, I was considered one of the dudes that was on the bigger side because you get these actors. Now finally you're starting to see bigger ones come out because of these superhero Marvel movies that are coming. They're making them go bulk up, or The Rock is. The Rock's probably massive, but in general, it's starting to kind of these action movies is kind of asking something of
changing
male,
the physique of the
100%.
Today's actor.
So I didn't fit the mold because I would go out for these Disney auditions and Nickelodeon because I was 18. But then the kids were, the people that were 25, 26 that had more maturity and more experience, they looked like they were 16 years old. And I looked like I could be like their older brother. And it was just weird. So I was stuck in this odd place. And then I would go audition for these older roles I remember brought it up the other day, like Jane the Virgin or, these shows on TNT that would require somebody who looked like in their 30s, but I was 20, 21, which I just didn't have enough life experience for that. And it just didn't work out. I think things would be a lot different now for sure, and I know that for a fact. But now I'm very fulfilled with the life that I have. That doesn't entertain me the way it did before. This is entertaining for me.
Fitness also, when you dive into it and your friends come from fitness and your personality traits that you had, become stronger through the things you do in fitness, you'll never learn more about somebody than watch it. I think Sean Pastuch has a line. You want to know the integrity of somebody, watch them do 50 push-ups for time.
I've said that before.
Yeah.
That's why it's such a big deal for our staff, especially potential staff, to come work out with us.
Yeah. You'll never find out more about someone in the last 4 minutes of a workout.
I know there's certain people that are going to work out with StreetParking, and I won't have to say it because their lack of commitment to the workouts and fitness in general, that is a big deal to me. And
it's not a fitness level; it's a level of effort.
Because you see, like workouts really humble you, and it's how you deal with like that stress and anxiety. You get to see people and because it's our field, this is what we do. Oh yeah, it definitely shows how they handle certain situations for sure, because people that just give up or just stop and like, no, that's not our people.
Do you build working out into the interview process at all? Like, do you
I've definitely, there's a lot of people, yes.
Not officially, like they don't know
yes,
that's part of
know.
it, but we're like, oh yeah, the crew's working out today, like come.
Yeah, and it's really kind of a test.
Yeah,
it's an unspoken test.
And the people that have failed, they're not with us.
Yeah.
They started off, but it didn't last long. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you look like right now? Are you guys still in hiring mode? What does that look like? And when you do, because that's got to be another thing too. Do you post publicly about it? Because then you would have members like crazy.
Oh my gosh, we get emails from members. I have a whole folder. The support staff has a whole folder of people that write in especially with those spoof videos. People were like, I want to come work there or whatever. We've never actually publicly posted that we're hiring. We've never done that. Mm-hmm. The tech team did do that, but not on the StreetParking page. They did it on like some LinkedIn stuff when he was looking for very specific skills.
Yeah.
Obviously, everybody else has come from. They know somebody else on staff, and they were recommended through that or something like that. A lot of our staff are members who had written in, and we saved their information for later and things like that. But we've never actually had to post like a job listing.
Are you guys on Glassdoor?
No, I mean maybe.
Yeah, have you ever looked up and see if anyone has written like a negative review?
I mean, we haven't had that much of a turnover. What have we lost? Maybe 5 people total.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
And their lives will feel a lot better because of it, which is great.
Yeah.
So we were talking before hitting record. We were talking about the real estate stuff. How do you see that playing into the bigger picture? Because the real estate obviously is meant to be quote unquote more of a passive play. Well, this is an extremely active everyday grind.
Sure.
If you were to go out 10 years, how does real estate and what you're going to play with there going to impact the family's overall wealth? And trajectory?
So one of the things that we've also learned to acknowledge for ourselves is not to over leverage ourselves, because you get these people that would probably be in the same situation as us that would just go out and over leverage themselves because of how things are going in the moment. And I've had some traumatic financial experiences to the point where it's like, no, we protect our money for sure.
Actually, one of the things that did happen to me when I was growing up is my parents had to file bankruptcy when I was 12. And
were you old enough to understand that?
Yes, because I was a childhood actress from like age 7 to 12, and I was doing like some random stuff. And when I was, I think, 10, I paid for Christmas for my siblings out of my own money, and my parents asked me if I could help with Christmas. And so they've since like paid me back and stuff like that, but I can't even imagine asking your 10-year-old for money for Christmas. What
happened, if you don't mind me asking?
My dad worked for a company. It was some sort of sales. I don't know if it was like insurance or something like that, because I wasn't old enough to understand exactly what he did. But basically, they were increasingly asking him to be dishonest to sell more of whatever it is that they were selling. It was something like insurance.
Had to do with like investments or actually,
some sort of like, oh yeah, that's right. It was getting people to invest in stuff, and they were like asking him to be dishonest about what their returns were going to be and things like that.
Very like boiler room-ish kind of scenario.
And we lived in a really nice neighborhood. My parents had built this massive home, and would go on trips to Hawaii and have these huge Christmases where people were getting freaking snowboards and all this kind of stuff. And then my dad finally this wasn't the best planning on his part, but I appreciate the emotion behind it. He just quit one day and just came home and didn't have a job and had 6 kids and a mortgage and all of this. And so from there, he tried to do other things, and they just struggled for like maybe 5-6 years, and ended up, having to sell the house and file bankruptcy. And so from a very early age, I saw that and just never wanted that to happen to me. And they taught us a lot through that experience. Like, they actually did talk to us about it and help us to make sure that we didn't have that happen to us. So anyway.
Yeah, and it just goes to like, so we know that it's only a matter of time, especially with our family being so young. And we want setting ourselves up to a point where we approach things on a more conservative level. So paying down the properties that we do have. So that way, if something happens, we could literally go work at a very simple entry job and be okay.
Sure.
And so having that, not being in a financial stressful situation really just keeps you in a healthy mindset for sure. So, and again, by not over leveraging yourself, we just keep things on a more conservative approach and just making sure that the business is healthy too. And then over time, like I said, just teaching the boys how to take over what we've created for them, But yeah, that's the most important thing. We're constantly analyzing if we plan on expanding our real estate portfolio, what kind of stress will that put us in, or how does that make us feel? Are we, or should we be investing more into the business, or like how should we have? So those are all constant questions we have within, anytime we're looking at a new property. But
how many residential units do you have under management right now?
So we have 3 rental properties and our primary and my mom's home. So we have 5 properties and some land.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say too, for me, having that actually, I see that as a way to make street parking more successful. And what I mean by that is, when we started street parking, we didn't need street parking, nor were we ever expecting street parking to pay our bills. So it was a labor of love that we could be creative with, make it exactly what we wanted to without worrying about sales and how many people are going to sign up and how are we going to push this thing. And I believe that it was as successful as it was because it was very much just the product that we wanted it to be without complicating it with all of that other stuff. And then there's a period of like, I had quit my job and he had left the business, the meal prep business, where it's like, oh shit, now we need street parking. And it can be very easy to turn into this mindset of like, how are we going to grow? How are we going to continue to be successful? How are we going to get money? We need street parking, and it can become stressful, and you can start making decisions that aren't exactly what you want it to be, but you feel like it needs to be in order to like sustain this thing. And then I know now with having some of the rental properties and like your home being paid off and things like that, you can come back to like, what do we want here? Like, what do we want this to be? Not feel like we need it to grow at a certain rate, or if we have a bigger cancellation month than last month, you start panicking and, oh my gosh, like we're going to lose everything. And so I think it actually puts you in a better place to build something long-term more successful and more what you want it to be and more authentic and everything like that, and keep you on message. So that's been really nice the last little bit.
I've really, in order for us to get to where we are now, is I've appreciated a mix between the Robert Kiyosaki approach and the Dave Ramsey approach, because Kiyosaki is all about debt, use debt to your advantage. But then also there's not a lot of people know how to deal with debt like that. But he is an expert at it, so it's easy for you to spit that out. It's no different than me and Miranda say, work out, just work out.
Yeah.
Why don't you just work out?
Yeah.
Work out. It's like, okay, you're actually becoming really annoying. And then there's the Dave Ramsey.
He's like, you don't need a credit score.
You don't need a credit score. You know, pay off everything fully. It's like, okay, asshole. Like, you're also not speaking to
two ends of the spectrum.
So it's taking a merge of a hybrid of their approaches, and where we actually realize the psychological. When you start realizing the psychological effects of both sides, then you can make the best decision. And I think a lot of people will blindly listen to, because they are successful. So of course, but I think as an individual, and it takes self-reflection. And that is difficult to do for sure, because you're always going to question, like, did I make the best decision? But again, because we both had experiences, and again, we just feel confident in our decisions, and we'll know the outcome soon enough. But so far, the steps that we've taken make us feel comfortable for our future, for sure.
I also think we're definitely still in that zone of like, we don't have time to spend our own money. Like, I don't have time to go shopping. I don't have time to think about a new purse. I like own one purse in my life, we don't have time for fancy vacations and thinking about all that. I mean, I have a pretty nice car now, but I made him go pick it because I was like, I don't have time to go test drive cars and think about what I want. Just go get something cool. And so I think there is a little bit to that as well, that when you're passionate about what you're doing and you're successful and you're working hard, that I always see like these Instagram posts of people who are like fake rich and real rich and like their outfits and stuff.
Oh,
and
so
like the
true.
fake rich are in their like,
Yep.
super expensive Louis Vuitton, Gucci, all this stuff. And then the real rich Silicon Valley dudes
Look
are in
homeless.
a black
Yeah.
t-shirt.
It's so true. You
and
see, you
jeans.
understand why.
Yeah.
You do. You really do.
The people I know that are the wealthiest, you'd never see it. They probably have a nice car. You've been to their home, but if you saw them out in public, they're wearing a University of South Carolina baseball tee and jeans and a pair, of flip-flops. It's just like, it's the most laid back. But it's a nice thing too, by you guys being underground successful. You talked about it, you mentioned earlier, the rest of the fitness industry, I don't think really even understands what we're doing, But if it did, then it could potentially be turned into a keeping up with the Joneses kind of, because now you're in the spotlight of that, and there's a perception as to what you should do when you get invited to things you don't want to turn down, and now you got to get a nice fucking purse because you're going to this gala with the Equinox and Soul Cycle CEOs and all that kind of stuff, and it changes it once you become publicly successful. Everyone jokes about like Jeff Bezos, richest man in the world. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Do you know there's princes over in Saudi Arabia?
Oh, man.
He's not the richest man. He's the richest man in America that has to report his income.
Sure. Right.
Like, that's it. Like, there's way wealthier people than Jeff Bezos.
They just stay out of the limelight. They stay out of the light for sure.
100%. Well, personal financial education is dog shit in this country. Nobody, I got out of college after a fifth year, little party year, and I couldn't even I knew nothing about my credit score. I knew nothing. With you guys and the boys, what does education look like going forward for them?
First of all, we are planning on homeschooling.
Schooling, yeah, that's where I want to get to.
Which is part of the reason that we need to continue to develop our staff and not have to oversee every single little thing. And the main reason for that is, I'm not like super anti the school system or anything, but we want to live a lifestyle where we travel a lot and where we, instead of talking about some certain element of, the Rocky Mountains and showing them in the book, like, let's just go there and we'll show you in person, or let's go to the South and learn about the Civil War, or let's go to whatever, and one of the things that I recognized actually with Julian when we first started dating is he's so smart and so, just incredibly intelligent, but he was somebody that struggled in school, and several of my brothers were the same way. I mentioned my brother's gotten in a lot of trouble. My oldest brother is super high IQ, and I don't know IQ scores, but he had his tested and it's really high, but he struggled in school, and they found out later that it was because he was bored. And so this concept of like, you stay with your group that's exactly your age and learn exactly the same way. And if you're not a book person, then you're screwed. And if you're not a test person, then you're screwed. I excelled in school and I loved it.
Sounds like Montessori schools kind of aim towards.
Yeah, and Knox is in a Montessori preschool now. So yeah, there's multiple reasons that we want to teach them at home, and it won't always just be the two of them. There's lots of groups and things like that.
Yeah, well, I think because I hear homeschool, I'm like, oh great, we're going to make a really bunch of socially awkward kids. Like, I think that's the stereotype around homeschooling. Is that so? Obviously, would you bring someone in? Is this something you would be doing?
We would do it as a group. Right now, kind of the way that it works is I've taught Knox pretty much how to read.
Yeah.
And he knows all of his letters, and he's very good at, he's not even 4 years old, and he's counting to 50 and like actually knows what that means and things like that. We do a lot of activities with him and have him like practice his handwriting and all that stuff we already do at home.
Where do you learn that? Like, I've me and my daughter, I try to do the absolute best possible. Like, where do you learn how to educate and speak to someone who has the cognitive abilities of, of 4, of 3?
The same way that you have to teach them how to go poop in the toilet and tie their shoes.
Just patience, trial and error.
Yeah, and just know that you're probably not going to get more than 5 or 10 minutes of attention out of them, and that being okay. And some days they're not going to give it to you at all, and not making it feel like work to them has been a big thing for us. Knox learned how to count by watching us work out. And I was like, okay, buddy, I got 10 more. Help me count them. And that's how he learned to count. Julian's really good with, showing them a lot of stuff. And he is really patient with them and has them building castles and puzzles and things like that. And then his mom, who has them all day, she cooks all day long. And they sit there and they cook with her and they go to this grocery store with her. And Julian and Lucy both speak Spanish to them only. And so there'll be different strengths and weaknesses that we have. They paint a lot and do a lot of art and stuff at her house. So as we grow, we'll just homeschooling, you kind of have to follow their lead. And the goal of it is notice what your child is naturally good at and naturally gravitates to, and develop that like heavy. Of course, you still have to teach them how to do math. You still have to teach them how to
round
read
it
and
out,
stuff
but
like
pour
that.
kerosene on the fire.
But yeah, exactly. And that's what school's never going to do, because they don't have the time or the resources to do that with each kid. And then figure out the way that they learn best. Do they learn best on the iPad? Maybe your kid actually does really respond to the learning games on the iPad, or maybe they learn better by going outside and actually looking at things in real life and in nature. And you just kind of have to pay attention to your kid very much one-on-one to be able to see that stuff. And so, I mean, I don't know a lot, but I listen to podcasts.
Yeah, no, I've heard you talk about it, and I've always been curious by it, because I probably very similar to you. It's not that I want to shit on the American education system, but I just kind of want to shit on the American education. Kind of really do.
Yeah.
So with homeschooling, do you think of that into high school and college? Like, what do you think of like long-term education? Like,
I mean, I don't know what that's going to look
yeah,
like.
like, will the
honestly.
institution
After 2020, like, what is high school going to look like in 14 years
Yeah.
from now? Like, will it even be? Is everybody going to be on their computer learning at home? Because at some point, once they get to certain levels of like math and things like that, we would definitely bring people in to help out with that, and they would understand like, I'm learning kind of for learning's sake at this point. But from some of the books and things that I've read, like, homeschool kids actually end up more successful in college because they've learned how to self-motivate. They've learned how to be left alone in a room and do the work on their own without somebody looking over their shoulder. They've learned to do a research paper without getting a specific grade that applies to this and that. Like, hey, what do you want to research? Like, okay, use the internet, figure it out, and write a paper about it. You know what I mean? Like,
They're very autonomous.
They've learned in a way that actually is applicable, and so they actually end up doing way better in college, because a lot of kids, if they want to go to college, like, again, what's that going to look like in 15 years? But when they get to college, they know how to be on their own, and they're very much self-starters, as opposed to kids that come from the school system where they're getting tardies and having their parents called if they don't show up to class. That shit's gone in college, and so they just kind of fall off.
There's so many cool parallels as you're talking that I'm thinking of. I mean, what you're trying to do with the boys through homeschooling is essentially what StreetParking is doing with people from the gym. The American Institution of Education.
It's just a bunch of socially awkward people who can't go to the gym.
Exactly. But, there's this institution of education in America that is essentially failing people left and right and leaving people in debt. I've got a client of mine in California. He can't get a $100,000 loan for his business, but he can get a $300,000 student loan to go back and get his PhD. It's insane. But, I mean, you look at that. The gym institutions have failed a lot of people looking for fitness and connectivity and community and all that kind of stuff. And it's just really interesting, even as you're talking about that, whether you recognize those two parallels of what you've got going on.
We've called it the homeschool of fitness before, and we actually have quite a few homeschool families in our community, which just makes sense. But one of our goals through StreetParking, and the reason why we don't tell them specifically, you have to do this, and this is the weight to use, and this is, all of that, is because we want to help make people autonomous in their fitness too. And it's just like, hey, like, just work out, just move, find something that's fun for you and do it. And obviously we're going to try to help you move properly, and we're going to give you some tips and goal times and things like that for these workouts. But at the end of the day, like, if StreetParking closed down tomorrow and you've been a member for 2 years, you should feel confident that you could do this on your own. You're not going to maybe make as cool of workouts because you don't have the experience in that, but you could look at your pair of dumbbells and be like, well, I think, thrusters and burpees are a good idea, or I know how to do a lunge, where a lot of gyms, they want you to feel like you need them all the time, forever. And or personal trainers or things like that, and they're not creating this sense of confidence and I can do this on my own, because if they're worried that if people do feel like I can do this on my own, that they will go do that, which I don't think is true, by the way. And so we want people to feel confident that they can do it on their own, and we want them to learn along the way. We try to educate them about a lot of stuff, about like nutrition and movement and all of that.
I know you got a couple of neighbors here that are members. What do neighbors and even your parents, like, somebody asked my daughter, what does daddy do for a living? She goes, daddy makes videos, right? Which is very ambiguous, right? Yeah, very ambiguous, right? Yeah.
Really weird
I mean,
direction.
Pornhub, or what are we talking about here? What are your family, when people ask what it is you guys do, what comes out? Because it's unless you're in it, it's more difficult. Like, oh, they do workouts. Oh, so they're trainers. Well, yeah, but it's online. Like,
people think that we do like we definitely when they hear it's online fitness, they think of it more of like a Peloton, like follow along workouts or like Taibo and that kind of stuff.
And you're like, no, it's way simpler than that. Like,
oh yeah,
no, we're not doing that.
Yeah, I think that's what probably a lot of people who've never seen it would assume.
100%.
Knox thinks I work at Starbucks because I go there so much with my computer, and he calls me every day. Where you at? Yeah, or he'll say I want to go to street parking, but obviously they're too young to think about that as like work or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, how would your dad describe what we do? Because my parents are actively in the community and do the workouts and everything, and they see it all.
Well, your mom does them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, your mom.
Your mom's young.
How would your dad describe what we do?
I would say he would get it
Okay.
pretty on because I mean he's in the community page and he's always asking about it. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Random question. You've had to have discussed this. Let's say you guys got divorced. What would happen to the business?
Oh, I don't think either one of us would be like super.
Like if you guys had to pen that or talk about that.
I mean, I don't think we've ever really talked about getting divorced. We've talked about if somebody died. We talk about, I mean, I'm pretty morbid, so I think about that kind of stuff a lot.
Are you morbid by nature?
Kind of.
Yeah. Do you like
I'm kind of
Tarantino movies and stuff like that?
I'm more of like a doomsday anxiety person.
Got
not like
it.
I
So when
enjoy thinking about that. I'm more of like a doomsday
When
person.
2020 hit, did that fuck with you bad?
Like
the pandemic and the
actual-
idea of a bunch of people dying and no one knowing? Okay.
At first, I was pregnant, so that didn't help. No, I mean, I was always pretty confident in our immune systems and things like that, and we weren't hearing of like people that we actually know that it was affecting so much and everything. I was more super panicky about that if I had to deliver in a hospital, because our plan was to do the home birth, that he wouldn't be able to come, that they would take my baby away from me, like all these stories that you were hearing, But no, the actual like thinking there was going to be like zombies walking around and stuff like that. I don't think we ever took it to that level.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would just a lot of communication and think we'd have to push through this. There's just so many people that have committed to
rely on
parking,
this.
Rely on this at this point.
But I don't think it would be, if we got a divorce, it wouldn't be possible for us to continue to run it together. I wouldn't be able to do that.
It'd be a difficult situation for sure. So,
because I've seen there was one couple, it was like Chris and Heidi Powell. They have it's a similar idea to ours, and they got divorced recently, and they've been trying to do it together still. And I just don't. There's no way.
Yeah.
Like if he was like dating chicks and bringing them to the freaking meetups and stuff like that. No, I mean I would
some new girlfriend has a street parking tattoo on her calf or a tramp stamp.
There'd have to be a level of respect and probably a step back of one or the other for sure.
Yeah.
Just out of respect for sure. Yeah, I think out of respect.
Yeah. I mean, because it's so are you guys on paper business partners 50-50? How does that look?
I think I have like 51-49, right?
Yeah, Miranda's 51-49.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just because she's the mother creator of it for sure, and she's put way too much into it, and and I think when it came down to signing that, that was not hard for me. No, it's like I'm not. There's no pride or ego here. You take this. That way, it's it's like another baby of hers as well. And,
I don't know that I would. I know that I wouldn't want to do it without him, though. It's like almost like living in the same house. Like you gotta Yeah, it's our thing together, and it's like.
I think that's reassuring, though, from a relationship standpoint. When you can have those conversations and it's not uber, it makes me feel weird. I don't want to talk about that. It's like when you feel super comfortable with somebody and it's like, that's the last thing I could ever fathom happening. Talking about it almost seems like, what if we won the lottery? Like, it's just one of those things that it's never going to happen, and having the conversation. And you mentioned earlier one of the things in counseling, and I found this similarly, being able to have the hard conversations. Typically I would just want to shut down hard conversations. I'm like, hey, I've had a rough day today. I'm not in the headspace for that right now. Let's do this tomorrow. And then I'd push it off again and push it off. And it was eventually no, let's just sit down and hammer it out. Are you guys go to bed angry, wake up and talk with it the next day, or
No.
hash it out before you go to
Oh,
bed?
I'll make him stay up till 2 a.m.
Which isn't even the smartest thing to do, but
No, I'm
but-
definitely listen. You're angry. I'm angry. I need to go fucking to bed. I will say something stupid if we keep having this conversation.
We've gotten better about it.
We've gotten better at talking about it early on, right away, before, because I know after 10 p.m., then the conversations no longer become productive because then you're tired and you're not thinking rationally, and then everything you just get so much more irritated because then you're like, I want to go to bed, and so we just address it right away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier having being pregnant and then having that publicly done on the vlog and all that humanized you a ton. You were this icon for so many people, and it humanize yourself more. What are your vices? What are the things that the average person is able to relate to on? Like, is it sweets? Is it wine? Is it what are your vices? Obviously, it's not like purses and material shit. Like, what are your vices?
Reality TV. I mean, it's not a lot.
Like trash reality
but
TV?
I have like super trashy.
What's your favorite trash reality TV show?
I've never gone full like Housewives. I can't go full house. I've tried, but I'll watch The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise. Lately on, I've been watching this Are You the One, which is like an old MTV. They're not even new. These episodes are like 5 years old. It's my thing that I like to do at night when I'm like pumping breast milk or whatever it has to be so dumb that it requires zero brain
Like
function.
escapism.
It doesn't make me like motivated. It doesn't make me like, I'm not so into it that I can't turn it off. So it's got to be pretty bad. And so I'll watch a lot of that kind of stuff. I'm really emotional, I would say that people know that about me, like in a lot of positive ways, because I'm very like, I can get that way in my captions and things like that, where I'm showing like I care and I love him so much and I love my kids so much, but it's not always the most positive thing. Like I can go from 0 to 100 mad, or 0 to 100 stressed, or 0 to 100 any emotion really. And I would say that's not a vice, but it's definitely something that people, unless you've lived with me, would never have seen.
Yeah. Do you drink?
Nope. I mean, I've been pregnant or breastfeeding for 5 years at this point.
That's true. Yeah. When you go back to back like that, that's just changes that
but
entire dynamic.
neither one of us are really big drinkers. I drank a little bit when we first started dating because I had been married for 9 years and I hadn't been on a date, and like I was so nervous. But that went away pretty quick.
What vices do you have, Julian?
I'm random, to be honest. I would say the things that I would relate to people on would be like comics, like anything that has to do with all the Marvel and DC stuff.
What's your favorite series, or like your favorite installment of that right now?
I thought they did really good with WandaVision. I'm about to start getting into the Loki stuff. Haven't really dove into like the Mandalorian, but because it's been hard, because I have a problem with like binge watching. I really go for it.
I've been trying to get him to watch Lost, and he refuses to even start.
Because I know why.
That's gonna be a commitment. You're going to be in there for a while.
I know that, and I've come to truths with it. Like, if you don't want to connect with me for the next however long, then
we connect through the. We watch it
encourage
together.
me to go watch that for sure.
But is that quality time? I always have that argument. Like we watched that together, and she's like, that wasn't quality time. I'm like, well, no, we were doing a thing together. Doesn't that check the box?
It depends on how into it you get. I guess.
So I think comic stuff is something that I think people don't assume about. Like, I like the Harry Potter stuff, like, the random mythical, stuff that comes out.
Is that nostalgic for you from childhood? Like,
oh yeah, I used to love all that stuff, like the Pokemon, the Yu-Gi-Oh, like all of that. I was a big person into cartoons and stuff for sure.
Blow you away how much value Pokemon cards have right now.
It's crazy.
It's fucking insane.
Yeah. And then, and I'm a very athletic person, but I don't really get into sports, like watching professional sports stuff, because then that just doesn't entertain me at all, really. So
it's so interesting. Jason was telling me the same thing. He's like, I don't really watch sports. Besides maybe jiu-jitsu now, he doesn't really get into sports.
No, not at all. Like there's like an indoor soccer stadium really
you
close
like to play.
by.
You just don't like to watch other people play.
Yeah, pretty much. That's boring to me. I'm like,
Until the boys get into it, and then
I'll go
we're
wild.
super amped in it.
What are they?
For sure.
What's Knox leaning towards? I
He
heard you-
loves soccer.
Soccer.
Yeah, he just loves. He's just an active little guy. I mean,
Yeah.
the other day my mom took him to the park and there was kids playing baseball and they would hit
Oh,
the ball
yeah.
and he'd go run and go get it and then just he was the ball boy, you know. And I think he just likes just doing what other kids are doing. But we would drive by the soccer fields and he'll say, "I want to go there," and or he likes the swimming classes. So that's a good sign for sure, and encouraging him to do that. I was a big wrestler for sure in my high school years. I don't know.
What weight class?
I started at 119, 25, 35, and then 45 because I just hit a growth spurt.
So huge.
That's
I
great.
was small for sure.
Now he's like 200 pounds.
Yeah, that was 145 pounds soaking wet in high school.
Yeah, and so I don't know if I would encourage that. I think some kind of grappling I would encourage, like jiu-jitsu or some kind of martial arts, just because I do think wrestling gives you like a really good foundation of grappling does.
And ringworm.
And
cauliflower.
Yeah, and but I was never a fan of the commitment to weight cutting. I think that there is a level of discipline for sure that it does teach you as an individual, but there's other ways to achieve that isn't weight cutting for
So
sure.
unhealthy, yeah.
Yeah, so I would, and then you never know too with who the coaches are, especially now being who I am. I would judge like my kids' coaches for sure.
We're gonna struggle with that. He's gonna like if the kids' coaches look like they're out of shape,
If they're
Julian's
sloppy
gonna have
and
a
everything,
really
I would have a hard time.
holding
Yeah.
his
Sure.
tongue.
Oh, yeah.
I do, because I think that if someone really has a how you carry yourself is there's something to the level of confidence that it brings in an individual and how they treat others.
I
for
can
sure.
see you having to coach every sport now that your kid's in, just because whoever it's going to be is not going to do a good enough job.
Yeah, and it's just like,
Yeah, but if he was the coach, he would have a hard time with the parents if they were like making excuses for their kids and like,
Yeah.
Jimmy hurt his
I
toe
have-
at school today. He's like,
I'll
suck
say
it up,
this.
Jimmy.
I have an
know?
interesting journey and lots of learning when it comes to that stage of the boys' life for sure. And I can't wait to get to that because it's just I'm going to learn a lot about myself for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're as far as like vices go too, you're way more of a foodie than I am.
Yeah, actually, I am. I love cooking a lot actually, and just doing random.
Like if we had the snacks in the house, you would have a much harder time with it than I do.
Oh yeah.
When you say foodie, do you enjoy the art of making it, or like when you hear a new restaurant and you see that they put a glazed fucking duck confit thing on
That
top?
doesn't
like,
really-
You're just like,
no.
I need that.
Yeah, more of the making it of making.
it.
I like simple stuff that's really tasty. I used to be really over the top when I lived in LA, just because I'd go to like Fat Sal's where you ever heard of Fat Sal's?
No, but I've heard the name a
Oh
thousand
man,
times.
they have like these sandwiches. They have like mozzarella sticks, fries.
Yeah,
like
Big panini
onion
type-
rings.
yeah.
Like in these. Yeah, it was just so over the top, and I mean, you just like. But now, since we've got to go into quality restaurants, now I appreciate like quality
Well,
food.
I think
Like
when
some
we
good
were,
poke, like good quality fish.
I think when we were dating, that might have been like one of the things that broke him out of like the cycle, because like he would try to take me to these like. We went to Fat Sal's, and we went to like.
He's like, but there's mozzarella sticks on it.
Yeah. I had like an adult child.
So this was like the part of me breaking like. Just enjoy this experience right now. This is never somewhere that I would go eat on my own, but like live your freaking life. And then him learning like, oh, there are actually like higher quality, better ways to eat.
Yeah.
Because I think at one point I was like, listen, I can't keep eating like this. Like this is
no,
not
for
what I
sure.
do. And so it was like this, him realizing that I was different than what he was used to, and him pulling out a side of me of like, just relax a little bit. Like you don't have to control every single little thing, that brought out the best in each other. Because definitely the food for the first couple months, I didn't really say too much, and then finally, I think I had to say something.
Yeah, and even now, like we kind of
I
realize.
just love that honeymoon phase where you'll put up with so much
She's
bullshit
like, listen,
in the
I'm
beginning.
gonna get fat if
Yeah.
I keep eating these places that you're taking me.
And we've learned to acknowledge our strengths and weaknesses, because now, like, she actually is very disconnected from, like, when it comes to street parking, a lot of the heavy, we discuss a lot of the heavy decisions, but she's got such a good flow on the vision for it. We both do, but it's like she's honestly, I would say she's the Batman and I'm the Robin to that. But when it comes to like these other ventures like real estate, she kind of lets me handle all of that and building those relationships and networks, and she trusts me and now understands that like I do care about the quality and putting projects together, and that I am organized in my own way. Just my level of organization doesn't really work in a group of 40 employees, and me seeing that, that's where I've been really good at delegating tasks, because it will. hold back the team if it, that my kind of structure, which works for me as an individual, but not as big groups. And so it's been great. We do well with tackling projects and knowing who would be better at what avenue.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I want to kick back over the business stuff. There's been very few companies that come out of anyone who's at any level of CrossFit celebrity success. A lot of them, I feel like they hit the limelight. It's there for a minute, and they think maybe it's going to last longer than it does, and they can't, once they're out of it, they can't really capitalize. But there's great examples, like Margot's got the wine, Bridges has got the coffee, Jason in the gyms. There's a lot of really good, you guys obviously. Do you feel, I asked Jason this, I'm like, I feel like there's an opportunity, not even like on a monetization, but like on a, not even giving back, but like that's such a large group of semi-professional people who have a moment in time to where this captive audience can catapult you into your next thing, but there's no education or no direction for them. Like, even if someone were to get an agent, like, what would you do with a made it to the games once, regionals 4 times kind of person, this bubble kind of human that, but still for a moment in time has potential. So they're not living sponsorship to sponsorship paycheck, supplement, lacrosse ball bullshit back and forth. Have you guys ever done, just even like with your friends, like any kind of like advice giving to like anyone that's like, they're there now and they're like, hey, I know this is going to last. Like, what do I do? How do I make this last?
I feel like that was a conversation that we had early in like our relationship. So one of the things that I figured out very early when I was still growing in popularity and very popular in CrossFit was to never promote something, never sign with a brand, never wear a shirt, never say, try to sell a product that I wouldn't personally buy, that I don't actually wear, that I don't. And so there were opportunities that I would turn down for apparel companies or this or that, where it's just like, no, I'm not going to wear that. Like, I don't care how much money it is. Like, I need to establish, and I wasn't doing it in like a business sense. I think it's just who I am as a person. Like, I have a really hard time not being genuine in that way. And I think what we were talking about before, where street parking has worked because it's what we actually are passionate about and what we're actually talented in, and turned it into a business. We didn't model it after anybody else. We weren't trying to copy somebody else's program. We're not trying to profit for profit's sake or things like that. And when I met him, he definitely had a couple sponsors that I was just like,
Hood rat.
You can't be, come on, like, this is actually making you as a person like
Live sore.
Like Fat Sal's.
Like live sore.
Yeah, like he would have the live sore, the bright pink, like quad dam shirt on, or like,
yeah,
I
never wore that one. It was just part of the lineup.
Or like whatever.
Yeah.
And until you know him, you assume that that's what or anyone that goes and does this cheesy stuff that's not really who they are, but they're just trying to make a buck, these sponsorship deals that they get. It actually makes it less likely for you to be successful afterwards, because people have seen you jump from this supplement company to this supplement company to this supplement company. And I think there is a place where, it's definitely not our place, but there is a place for people who are in that situation to think about, like, what does mean a lot to me? What is a message that I would like to share? What are the companies that I really believe in? Or what is the type of, I know you talk a lot about having your own brand of fitness. Is that how you say it?
A unique belief in fitness,
your unique belief in fitness. Like Marcus Philly is another good example that you use a lot, where he had that moment in time and he used it. And he didn't create functional bodybuilding because he saw somebody else do it and jumped on that bandwagon because he thought there was money in it. Like, that's actually what he believes. Yeah. And so, I think that there is a place for that. But mostly just teaching people how to take the work ethic that they have that has gotten them to that point and apply it to something else. I think that a lot of people have a really hard time with that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think about it. I always think, like, if I were CrossFit, so many things I would love for them to do. That'd be like one. It'd be like the weekend of the games, like having some kind of thing where they just bring a couple of you guys in just to answer some questions for these people that are like looking at you. And because CrossFit's so unique. Think about the NFL, and you have your heyday, and generally those guys cycle right back into the sport in some way. Commentator, coach, they're still involved. Mm. Do you guys, be real, do you still watch the CrossFit Games?
I'll watch event, not really anymore. At first, we watched it more. Like if I know somebody who's competing, we'll watch it, or I'll turn it on, or I'll look at the leaderboard, but we don't like actively.
I hear that many of the people I've talked to, whether I got it on air or not, I ask that same question, and it's no, I just don't. I'm not that into it, and that is so unique because in most professional sports, that you rarely hear that. They normally stay somehow. I mean, they eat, sleep, and breathe it. They couldn't fathom not. I mean, you'll still see those guys go on the sidelines of a Clemson football game, and that's where they played. And
what did Jason say when you asked him that?
he's same thing, very similar. I think there's certain things he checks out, but beyond that, he's that's it. It's past. Why do you think that is for CrossFit? Is it just because it just consumes everything and just beats the shit out of you so bad that you're just like at the end of it you're just like, I'm done. I just don't care.
It's a very certain kind of culture that the CrossFit Games brings. It's a very competitive mindset. It really is, and sometimes that's exhausting. And like I said, fitness is a mood, and sometimes that mood is just like exhausting. And so I think it's cool that you're seeing a new generation of individuals. Like you hear of these stories because some of our staff definitely follows it, the media guys. And so it pops up in my search feed. I'm like, what is going on here? And you see this new generation of kids, which I think is great. But then you also see who's still involved in it, and that's not so great. You're like, what is going on here? It's concerning. But then that's as far as it goes. It's like, whatever. And again, back to blinders, because it's just not something that I connect with heavily anymore in that sense.
I think maybe there's an element to most other sports, like football is the example that you used. You get really attached to a team and like an organization.
It's an
how's
identity.
the organization
it's a brand.
changing? And there's not really that in CrossFit. It's different every single time, so it's not. There's so much to analyze in a football game from how the sport is growing and changing and how players are doing things differently and things like that, because the game is still the same, basically. And because it changes so much, I think it's harder to get into it maybe in that way. I really look at it because I still enjoy seeing the programming that comes out and what they have them doing and stuff like that. But I don't really know many of the athletes that are still participating. And I feel like CrossFit was built on, at least when I started, I competed in 2008 and then was involved from 2008 to 15. Most people in those early days, the crowds were there because they personally knew their coach who was competing. And that's what helped the growth so much. Like you knew that person or you knew that team or whatever. And that's not really the case so much anymore because most of those people, they're not coaches at all.
I actually got to listen to Tony Budding and that group who did Grid. They came to Charlotte, and a buddy of mine invested and created the Charlotte team before they imploded. And so I got to go to that investor meeting and see the pitch deck and all that. And that was one of their big arguments was that in sports, you identify with a team, and then every generation of kids you have is probably going to, like I'm from Cleveland, right? Even though I don't live there anymore, my kid's going to be a Cleveland Browns fan. That's just how it's going to be. But in an individual sport like CrossFit, the lifespan, I mean, if you look at some of those guys, is it's finite. It's very short. It's not double-digit years for the most part. So you're constantly having to recycle who your team is, kind of scenario. Who's the athlete you identify with? And the thing with an individual, an athlete, that's so hard to identify with just one person. If they do something scandalous or wrong or whatever, now you're like, but at least with a team, even if that one quarterback did something horrible, you're like, that's still my team regardless. It's always it was parts of these conversations that have come out where I've asked that question. It was just really interesting to me that even the deepest, you've had the most intimate connections with the sport, and it's just not there anymore. That's just really unique. You don't see that in a lot of other sports.
I get concerned slightly for a little bit, about some of these athletes that are in the the spotlight for sure, that have been there for a while. Not really. It doesn't seem like they're establishing much currently to plan for that day where it's done, right? So like missing that window of opportunity, and that's a bummer because. Again, it comes and goes so quickly, before the spotlight goes to another person. And then if you haven't built up something, a brand, then what do you got?
Entrepreneurship's lonely enough, You guys are in a unique scenario where you had this class where you guys knew a bunch of people, games, you guys are all at the same level, and then you kind of graduated and went this way. And again, you could probably look over to Jason or whatever. But who else is kind of still in that colleague level that you guys can now have, I don't want to call more mature, but yeah, like more mature conversations. Instead of talking about your training cycles like you did 5 years ago, you're talking about the new business and some of the challenges you're having. Who do you get to have cooler talk with that had your same trajectory? Athlete turned entrepreneur.
I mean, again, I still talk to Jason every now and again. I still talk to Pat Sherwood. But not many.
No, I don't talk to anybody.
It is pretty lonely. I would say it is pretty lonely. You hear of that all the time. Entrepreneurship is lonely. I've had, and he can like attest to this. It's like a really sad story. I have been searching for female entrepreneur or even CEO. You don't have to have started at some sort of friends with children who actually like their kids and want to hang out with them and
Yeah.
I've been I've joined Facebook groups, I've joined email lists, and a lot of the people that I will find, and there's nothing wrong with this, of female entrepreneurs or people who sell doTERRA oils and stuff like that.
Sure.
I've had a hard time finding somebody who I can relate to who has the level of success that we have, that is a female and a mom and all this stuff. And I just they always say all of your friends shouldn't be on your payroll. Well, right now, almost all of my friends are on our payroll, and it's really sad. I've really searched and tried, and the search continues.
It's so I'm in this group. It's just this monthly group, and it's Marcus, it's me, it's Kelly Starrett, it's Sean Pastuch, and there's a handful of women who are in it as well. And Sean started this thing as just it's not even a mastermind. It was just, I think he called it an entrepreneurial support group, and it was just one of these things where people get together. We just literally someone takes the floor and goes, "This is the shit I'm struggling with," and everyone just kind of listens and just one by one gives some feedback. And some days you go in and you have no problems to talk about whatsoever, and you're just kind of giving feedback, and it's super rewarding. And then I remember one time the call wasn't even officially started. I'm like, all right, I have to say I need help on this. And it was it was super cool. It's I had 7 shrinks, but it's very difficult, especially because I have friends who work, and that's great and we can talk, but it's a different thing when you're trying to relate to someone at that level, especially when you're looking for the dynamic married and kids, understands the full 360 degree picture of this thing.
Because I get a lot out of business podcasts or marketing podcasts or these books and things like that. Most of them are written by men, or the podcasts are men. And then if I get these parenting and homeschool podcasts, most of the women don't work, or if they do, it's very it's a lot less of a stressful situation than so it's been really sad. I also talk to E.C. Sinkowski a lot. So female, successful. Obviously, we can talk a lot about fitness and nutrition and stuff, but not so much on the mom side, of course. But it's so sad. I'll tell them, I'll be I posted in the Facebook group and nobody responded to me.
You're on Bumble BFF.
They don't like me. It's really sad.
Do you have a group of guys? Do you still have a social network? Do you go on a guys trip go fishing once a year?
No, I'm not really a guys trip kind of person, to be honest. I've actually learned to really appreciate being alone. Yeah. Because of how I love to be involved with with what we're doing and our family. For me, it has mostly been going to either see my dad or taking a drive to see my dad in Tillamook, and even then, it's just let's get together for dinner. And because I know it's going to be mostly him chatting, and but yeah, just that drive alone is just good reflection as to kind of processing things, and just to have a moment to kind of just recollect my thought, breathe a little bit, and because it's healthy, right? Because then I come back and just Superman my roles into trying to help her out with everything that we got going on, and it's back and forth, right? So, but I've been okay with that though. I don't really get sad about those. That doesn't make me sad, Yeah. And, when guys are you're missing out on bros trip.
You weren't really a bros dude even when we met, though. I mean,
no, I wasn't. I wasn't. I was kind of more of a lone wolf kind of person. I chat with Brian, who's our accountant. I chat with him all the time because we always talk about financial stuff and Robinhood stocks and decisions that we're making there. And then we can talk about the business. And then, we have kids the same age, so it kind of allows us to talk about some of that stuff. But even then, we're both on the same situation where like our quality time is with the family and not really as like we're going on a boys trip.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I would say my main person she's my best friend anyway, but that relates to me the most is Molly, because she is running like a big department for us and stuff, but she's on the payroll, which I know you're supposed to find people that are not on the payroll, and I'm just having a hard time with that.
Yeah. But it is. I mean, that's going back to the lonely thing. People say it's lonely for 100% reason.
Well, because you don't have a lot of time to put into these relationships either, which a new friendship takes like, some nurturing.
I used to be so self-conscious. Every woman I ever dated, casually or seriously, because I've been doing this since 2010, the gym thing came from the gym. And it was like, and I would be like, I'm literally here 18 hours a day.
Where else am I going to find someone?
Am I going to find a date? And this is pre-Tinder. I'd be like, hey, you want to meet for dinner at 9 o'clock after I get done mopping the gym? Like, that's not really happening. So I was easily able to find people that were in my socioeconomic status, enjoyed fitness. I could see what kind of human they were at the end of a workout. And it was so, there's a very respectful, proper way to date somebody in the gym versus running through it like your own 3D Tinder. But yeah, that was something I always had, and I had friends, family that were always like, why don't you have any friends outside this thing? I'm like, that's all I do. It's like that is it. I don't have the it's not 9 to 5. This is 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. if not later. Where do you guys see, I mean, how long you guys, so Portland, this is forever? You guys gonna sell this and move somewhere else someday? What are you thinking?
Well, we bought some land in Camas, so it's
like 10 minutes from here.
Yeah, so we plan on building our forever home there for sure.
Where is that again?
Camas. It's like 10 miles away.
What's what is that? Where is that? I have no.
It's like more. It's further from Portland. It's more toward like where there's still like farms and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like a 10-minute drive to our new office in this whole area, so it's perfect. Actually, it's nice. It's called Urban Amenities. All the amenities are close by.
Oh, I guess I don't know.
I think that's what the name of it was. Whatever. Yeah, we really, really like this area. I get why people, there's been thoughts of, where else would we go to Texas? But it's like, no, that'd be miserable because of the weather. I hate the heat so much, and I hate rattlesnakes. So, like, that's uncomfortable, right?
Very common thing to hate and very uncommon.
I actually like this weather, and it's better to warm up than like finding ways to cool down because it's just horrible. And then you're going to sit in areas, and then you're worried about the elements. Like, no, I'm good. So this has kind of made us pretty happy, to be honest. I know it's a little concerned that Portland is a little bit out there. But again, it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting area as far as the diversity of people who live. Not here in Vancouver, but like around. I mean, Portland has been in the news plenty the past year. And it's a beautiful city. It just needs a little bit of TLC, I think, or a lot of TLC. And hopefully that will happen. We don't really go there, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Well,
and as this is coming out of my mouth, I probably shouldn't. I don't know when I will release this afterwards, but you guys obviously have the new one coming, right? And I will, if you want me to cut this out, I 100% will. But like, it's just super cool. I'm super excited. I'm so glad I got a chance to meet you guys and come out. And thank you so much for carving out the time to do this and just kind of shoot the show with me. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome, ladies and gentlemen, Miranda and Julian Alcarez.